I don't have to be in this then. I can.
You can stay. Just stay right where you are. 'Cause I have total control. Just think of that Outer Limits series where I have total control of everything.
Okay.
Does Outer Limits is before Angela's time?
What?
Yeah, Outer Limits, the series.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched
Oh
it.
my gosh, it's so young.
I just started watching Twilight Zone again on streaming.
It's a way better version than Twilight Zone.
Oh,
Right, Twilight Zone was psychological. Outer Limits had real monsters. Oh man. Okay, so we are. Let's see. Let me just take this off.
would you rather me have my PowerPoint up?
Who's that? Heidi?
Yes.
Well, you can put it up. Yeah, go on and put it up so it's up there, and then when you go, I can just click the button and it just pops it up. So you don't have to close out anything. Once you share your screen, you just leave it there.
Okay.
That's what I like.
I want to be able to see everybody for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
We got people popping into Twitch now. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Photoshop Users Group presentation. We have two great presentations today. 01Ella, welcome. Alcidra, welcome. Commander Root, welcome back. Drap Snap, welcome. Greg Clamp is here. Yay! Welcome. See, Angela's happy. Angela thinks Greg Clamp's cute.
Oh gosh. Angela's married, happily married.
So I met her husband. He's cool.
Yes.
So Mag Nonsense, welcome. To Sivian, welcome. So we got more people jumping in. It's not everybody here, but they're all coming in. All right, we have a wonderful presentation. I'm going to introduce both of our presenters. We have Angela, and we have Heidi, and I think it's a Gotro. Okay, all right. So welcome both. We're going to start with Heidi. Heidi is this wonderful photographic artist who's going to share her work and her technique, her vision, her style. I think you all will enjoy it.
Okay. Well, thank you for attending. This is wonderful. Today, I plan to take you through the editing process of a few of my images. These are images that weren't terrific to begin with. They were this close to hitting the cutting room floor. But when I went back and reworked them and did some re-editing, I was really happy with the result. My hope is to encourage you to go back and look through some of your images and find some images that you want to rework, or maybe go out and get some new ones. I'll have a Q&A session at the end, but if you want to interrupt with me with some questions, I'm more than happy to take them. Who is Heidi Gotro? Well, confused by the look of all that. I was told when I started shooting to find my niche, and I think I'm still looking for it.
And Heidi, we're still seeing the StreamYard app.
Oh, I have PowerPoint up on mine.
Okay. So did you share your entire screen or just the application?
Well, let's just escape out of here. Let me go back to here.
All
it says
right.
I'm sharing. Let's well, let me stop sharing.
All right, you got it.
Okay. And then ask me, do I need to get back over to here?
Yeah, just go down the present button down in the middle. And when you hit that, it should ask you, go to share screen. It should ask you to share your entire screen on the top to the far right.
Got it. And I'm hitting share.
Okay.
And are you seeing that?
I am seeing the stage with oh, there we go. Got it.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute and turn off my camera and let Heidi take the stage.
Well,
here.
you don't need to do that. I'm going to do that right now for us.
Oh,
right there.
We go.
See? There you go. All right.
Okay. So here we go. So I use Lightroom for my cataloging. It's where I store my images. I use keywords and collections within Lightroom, because that's where I am when I start. That's where I start my editing process. I apply lens correction and remove chromatic aberration when I import my images, and I'll go through and rescue highlights and shadows and maybe do some rough cropping while I'm there. And then I typically go over to Photoshop for the bulk of my work. But that's deceiving, because even though I'm in Photoshop, Many times I'm going back into Adobe Camera Raw in form of a smart filter because I like the control it gives me to be able to go back and change things if I change my mind or go in a different direction. There's several other programs that I use. I use Topaz Denoise. It's a great, my computer's talking to me out there. It's really great for removing noise. I shoot at higher ISOs with my wildlife shots, and it allows me to rescue a lot in there. Topaz Sharpen AI, I have it. I use it very rarely. It's for very specific situations. You have to be really careful and use it sparingly because it over sharpens really easily. Gigapixel for upsizing. I don't know that it's better than Photoshop. Some people in the know have suggested it, so I just tend to go to there. Nic's been around forever. It's got some useful tools. I don't go into it nearly as much as I used to, but it still has a couple of tools I like to go in there and use. Helicon Focus is much better at focus stacking than Photoshop. Photoshop does a really bad job if you get over 3 images, and even then sometimes you have to really go back and clean it up. And Helicon Focus does well. Tony Kuiper's TK9, it's not a standalone program, it's a plugin. It's the cheapest thing I own. It's $33, and it has some great tools, and it's becoming a part of my regular workflow. I shoot in RAW pretty much exclusively, except for when I can't, and I'll talk about one of those situations today. So RAW, when you shoot in JPEG, the camera compresses that data down, and it makes the file much smaller. It's 2 to 6 times smaller, and you can fit a lot more on a chip. But the camera processes that image and it throws away all the pixels it doesn't want. So further editing is severely limited. When you shoot in RAW, you have to edit the images. They look terrible straight out of camera, whereas the JPEGs look pretty good. But editing the RAW is where you get to make your magic. I'm going to show you some examples of what we're going to go through today. So this was an image that I shot in the Pacific Northwest. We were driving along and I saw that light coming through the moss, and it was wonderful. And I hopped out and took the shot. And in hindsight, I probably should have grabbed a tripod and shot this in HDR, but I didn't. But through editing, I was able to take this image to here. And this is more along with the vision that I saw when I took the image. This was a dandelion clock or dandelion seed, and I envisioned this very elegant, simple image with the white milk and the clock, and it just turned out boring. This is a focus stack of 4 images, and it lived on my computer for a while before I went back and retackled it, and this is where that image ended up. This was very recently. This was a trip to London, and it's a nice snapshot, but after some editing, I was happier with where that image ended up. And if we have time going into this image, this is taken with a 4 megapixel underwater camera that I had to borrow. And so the data on there is very limited. It is a JPEG, but I was still able to get that image to here. So let's dive into some editing. So this was that image that was taken in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm going to take you through my editing process. Let me get my right notes here, because I have to do it the same way I did it to kind of match my example there. So starting out, I'm going to open up the exposure, but this is just going to be a temporary edit just so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go down here. All these, the lines and the towing in is really messing with my eyes, so I have to correct that first. If you haven't worked in this tool in Lightroom and in ACR, I find these tools much easier to work with for correcting this than in Photoshop. We can try Auto. I know from experience that Auto doesn't do a very good job on this image, so we'll just go back. A lot of times I'll use these guided tools, and you just draw a line and draw a line. And in this case, I think it distorts the image too much. So we'll just go back here to the exposure. I love my history panel. I use my history panel a lot, and that's what I miss when I do go over to Adobe Camera Raw is the history. If you've never used this, if your image is twisted for horizontal, this is nice. And in this case, we are going to use the vertical. And I'm going to take this right about 60. And you can hit this constrained crop button right down here, or I'm actually just going to go into the crop tool and from here crop it to where I want it. There used to be a great done button. That's gone, so you just hit enter. And then I said that, let me close that down. This is temporary, and I'm actually going to open it up, but not by nearly that much. I'm only going to open this up about 3/4 of a stop. And then I'm going to change it to black and white. And I don't know if you've used these profiles. A lot of times with the black and white, I don't know why I don't do it in color, but in black and white, I tend to go down to the profiles and see if there's a profile that gives me a good starting point. And in this case, I liked black and white 10. And so when you choose this, you can take it back in. It doesn't move your sliders. So the only slider that's moved is the slider that I moved earlier to increase the exposure. It just gives you a different starting point. It's a different profile. And whenever I switch over to black and white, my next step is going to be to go to the black and white mixer. And there's no secret formula here. You just move things around until you get the look that you want. Sometimes you have to be careful with the blues. It can go over the board really easily. With the orange, there's not a big change, but I like what it does just right around the starburst. It just kind of cleans that up a little bit. We know there's going to be a lot of change with yellow because there's green, and whenever there's green, there's a lot of change with yellow. And I didn't pump it up quite that much because I'm going to affect that yellow in another way here in just a moment. And then greens, again, there's a lot of green in there, but it's funny that the green doesn't affect it nearly as much as the yellow did. And then the other colors don't really do anything, just because I've worked this image a few times. So I tend to zero them out if they don't do anything, so I don't find a weird spot in my image later. We can affect color also with the temperature. So we know there's a lot of yellows in there. So when we bring this up towards the yellow side, we are just kind of opening that a little bit more. And there's greens in there as well. So we're going to take this right over to there. I am going to mess with the highlights and shadows just a little bit. So I'm going to take the highlights down and open up the shadows. And then add just a little bit of texture and a little bit of clarity. And so with those minute changes, I don't feel like we've changed that much. We've only increased that exposure by 3/4 of a stop. And all the rest of it was by using the luminosity values of the colors. We were able to open that image up that far. And I think that's a big change. It's a better starting point. So I'm going to take it into Photoshop. So here it is in Photoshop, and anytime I come over with Photoshop, my first step is going to be to duplicate that layer. So just hit Control J, and then I'm going to make this a smart layer. And take it back into Photoshop. And I know you can use a shortcut to do this, but I have muscle memory to just come up here and hit this. It's where my brain automatically goes. So I want to add some more light in specific areas. I want to add some local light that's peeking in through the forest, and I'm going to do that by using some radial gradients. And I already know that I want to increase the exposure by about a stop on these areas. I want to add a wee bit of light coming through. And so we can draw and move those around. You could add another one. And because I'm adding another one, it's going to have that same, it's within the same mass, so it has that same exact adjustment added to it. You could also just hit Shift J, and that puts you into the radial gradient. And then you could also just right click, duplicate, and do it that way. There's lots of different ways to do that. I'm actually more of a brush girl. And so if I click on add brush, I'm still in that same mass, so I still have that same adjustment, and I can just come on here. I tend to keep my brush at about 50%, and I'm just going to paint where I want to put it in. And I won't make you guys sit through all of this painting.
That's very cool.
I like adding light. Okay, so then I hit OK. And I'm actually going to take you guys over here to another one that I already did this. So So this was the same image, and I brought it in before. And I did a touch up in there over in that upper left corner. And I did this probably a year, 2 years ago. And I think if I was doing it now, I'd do it differently. So let's do it differently. So I'm just going to grab my lasso tool. I'm going to lasso that area because my cloning skills were not as good as generative fill. So I'm just going to generate that. Sorry for the wait. It's not that big an area. It shouldn't take too long.
It's not like they have a choice.
Yeah. So looking through these did a much better job. I think I like that one right there. I like that tree continuing on up over there. So I'm just going to take that down. I'm going to put it over my touch-up layer, and I'm just going to combine those layers. Oop. I think that's a better starting point. But now my upper layer up here isn't exactly lining up. So all I'm going to do, oops, what did I do?
So we have a question, Heidi.
Yes.
Jill Ford has a question that says, "What is generative fill?"
Oh my gosh. So generative fill is an AI function within Photoshop. So when you select an area and you fill it with generative fill, and I did not tell it what I wanted to fill, so it looks at the image, and based on what it sees in that image, it generates pixels to fill that area. Is that a good explanation, Steve?
I think that's wonderful.
Okay. And I did something when I put those two together, so I'm just going to do this again. I'm just going to hit Control-E to merge those layers, which it did a better job there. And now my layer above here is now different because it has that old layer, but I can fix that. So if I just make this layer my new generative fill, the two layers together, and I make this a smart layer, and then I can just drag this, all these adjustment layers I did on here within my smart builder, just put it there. And now they're there, and I can throw this one away. And now all those edits are here. And you can see what I went in. I went into Adobe Camera Raw, and I did these different, added all that light in there. And I'm going to show you the way that I most typically dodge and burn, which is what I'm doing when I'm adding the light and dark. So I'm just going to add a blank layer. I'm going to fill that layer with 50% gray. So if you just go to Edit, Fill, 50% gray.
And
yeah.
we have another question.
Yes.
Also from Jill Ford. It says, "Do you have to acknowledge that you created this image using AI technology if you enter the image somewhere else, like in a show?"
You know, I think, let me put this on overlay real quick here. I don't believe that if you are just doing generative fill, and I think it depends on the competition also, but if you are using generative fill just to do small areas, I don't think that that is an issue. I mean, we used to use content-aware fill, which was also doing the same thing, although it was using your own pixels as opposed to doing AI. And it depends on the competition. Some are going to say no AI, but there's so many things that we do within our computer that are AI. If you're using Topaz Denoise AI, that is using AI technology. AI is a tough word because it's not everything that we're talking about. When people say AI, they're thinking of things, in my opinion, of things that are just generated by the computer. And there's all kinds of AI technology out there, and it's not all totally created by the computer. So that's a good question, and I don't think that there is an exact answer yet.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we are. We have this is a layer that's filled with 50% gray. It's in overlay blend mode, and this is the way I dodge and burn the vast majority of the time. So I'm going to have a brush, and this brush is going to be soft. Let's make sure I have a nice soft brush. And to get to my default colors of black and white, I can just hit D, and I'm going to paint with white first. So I'm going to hit X to go to white. Typically, when I am painting with white, I'm between 1 and 3% of flow, and for black, I'm between like 3 and 5. So we'll just put that at 2. And I can do the same thing that I was doing over there, and you just kind of build up light. And you can do it pretty quickly. And you know, those questions that you're asking about AI would be a great question. Stephen is going to have all kinds of answers, and so will Greg Clamp. He's another person who works in AI quite a bit. I don't do any totally AI generated stuff yet, although I think I'd like to play around with it. I think it is extremely interesting.
Yeah, and Greg is Greg is here. So if Greg, if you want to, put your 2 cents into it, just type in the chat box. That would be wonderful.
But anyway, there's some white. I could switch that over, paint some black. And I'm not going to bore you guys with, because literally this is kind of relaxing for me, and I can do this for
Right.
one.
And it's interesting because you're working fast too.
It-
And that's a great thing that you're doing that. There's a psychological thing that happens where you're learning to see your image as an abstract piece rather than a literal piece of a woods.
And how long did that take me? Even with talking, I would say a minute.
Yeah.
And that's what we did in a minute. This is one I did before. I think I didn't put enough there. So I'm going to put the two of them together. I kind of like that. So I've added some individual light, and now I want to add some global light to draw your eye into the middle of the image. I used to go into Nick and do light and darken center, and then I started doing my own light and darken center, if you will. So I just add an adjustment layer, any adjustment layer, it doesn't matter which one. And if you're not familiar with these blend modes, and I'm sure everybody here is, these are your light. No, I'm in adjustment. Let me do an adjustment layer first. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there. So I'm going to do an adjustment layer. And we'll just do brighten and contrast just for sake of argument. And it doesn't matter what type of adjustment layer. And then I'm going to put it in a blend mode. And so these are your darkening blend modes, lightening blend modes, contrast blend modes, and these are your weird ones down here. We'll call them weird. So I'm going to put this in multiply, and that just darkens it. And it darkens it way too much. But I'm going to decrease this opacity to around 20%. And it's darkening it all over, and that's not what I want. So I want to darken the outside and lighten the middle. So I'm just going to take a brush, and this time it's going to be a really hard brush. You can just click on hard at 100%. And I want my paint to be black because I want to conceal the area in the middle. I'm going to make a nice big brush. And I'm just going to paint. And that looks terrible. So if I alt click on my mask, you can see what I did there. But if I double click on my mask, I can change that feather of that circle. So I'm just going to bring the feather over until I like it, which is about there. And click. And now if I turn this layer off and on, I've just darkened down along the edges, but it's nice and feathered. And then I can do just the opposite. So I have a mask there that's really good, which would, if it was the opposite of that, it would select the center really well. So if I just make a duplicate of this layer, just Control J, then I have this mask. And if I change this to screen, then it's in screen, and it actually kept the same opacity, which is kind of nice. And then I'm going to invert this mask by hitting Control I. Now we have a layer that's darkening the outside and one that's doing the inside. And we can adjust those independently, or if there's an area that it's hitting that I don't want, I can adjust that. But it just helps to really draw your eye towards the middle. It's weird when you turn it off, it looks like it's dark in the middle. But I like that as one of my final finishing moves on most of my images. And then I do levels on almost everything. My last thing, I'm all done. Let me check and make sure if I have a white and a black point. And so I just hold Alt and click on this. And I have a fairly good black point. I like a good black point. And then for my white, I don't want it to be too high, so actually I'm going to back it off to there. And then what I like about doing this, as opposed to setting a white and black point in Adobe Camera Raw or in Lightroom, is I can adjust the midpoint. So if I decide I'm feeling a little lighter this day, I can take it to the lighter side, I can take it to the darker side. You know, today I'm feeling kind of light and airy. So I think I like it right there. And there's that image. And that took not very long. So I'm going to close these down just to help to take some of that stress off my computer, and we'll go to the next image. And so here is that dandelion clock. And I'm going to open this image in Photoshop. You guys get to look behind the curtain here at all the things I'm working on. Okay, so this was a stack of 4 images, and then I made a stamped layer, and I'm sure you all know how to make a stamped layer, but I'll go over it real quick just in case, because there's no shortcut for this. There's no menu. There's a shortcut, but there's no menu item for this. So when you want to make a stamped layer, which is a copy of all the layers below it, you just hit Control-Alt-Shift and the letter E, and that makes a stamped layer. And it's just a pixel layer of all those layers below there. And I'm just going to throw that one away because I already made that. So here it is. And then I added a levels. And when I did this levels, I actually did it on luminosity mode. In the normal mode, it really accentuated the color that was there as well. And I didn't like that. So I changed the blend mode to luminosity. And that way it brought in the black and the white without saturating the colors. And then I went in and did some touch-ups. And I didn't want to bore you guys with my touch-ups, but they're there. So this is now my starting point. My touch-up layer is my, I'm going to call it my background layer. So I want to make a copy of this so I always have this to fall back to. So I'm just going to hit Control-J, and I have a copy there. And I'm going to make this one a smart layer. So convert that to a smart object. And I use those terms intermittently between smart layer, smart filter, smart object. And I don't actually know if there's any difference. So if I'm saying that inappropriately, I apologize. And we're going to take a quick dive into Nick. Does everybody still have Nick? I think everybody used to use it. I still have like 5 things I do in it. Sometimes.
You know what? IB Wizard made a statement saying that Adobe has developed a CR logo to place in generated AI images.
Okay. So when I came over here with this image initially, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I was looking for some creative inspiration, and I just fumbled around in here and tried to see where I wanted to go. And where I ended up still amazes me. And I think if I were to do this on a different day, every day, I would come up with a different artistic vision based on where I was. Because I not only clicked on solarization, but then I took solarization all the way down here to the bottom and then backed it off a little bit. And I still find this amazing every time I do it. I'm like, how did I end up here? Okay. And then bringing it back over. It did add a lot of noise to the image, but I know I plan to add some textures, so I'm not going to worry about the noise. But I don't like that dark strip across the top there, but that's easy enough to take care of. So I'm just going to add a blank layer and see what kind of brush I have. I have a hard brush. I'd like a soft brush, please. And I'm going to sample, just going to alt click, and I'm just going to paint across the top there. And whenever you paint with a big soft brush, you always get some overspray, which I did right there, but that's easy to fix. I'll just come over here, add a mask. We've got black, make this a little bit smaller, and I'm just going to paint back in the parts that I painted up. So now I wanted to add a color. There's several ways to do this. Let's see what I have open here. So you can just grab a texture or a color. If you just left click, grab it, drag it down over Photoshop and drop it in the middle of your document. It will size it to fit in there. And you just click the check mark to accept that. And then try some different blend modes. And as I went through all these, I ended up landing on color. I was trying to add color, so that's probably appropriate, but it's a little strong. So take it back down to around 20-ish%. Sorry, I have to get to my right notes there. And then I wanted to add some texture. I'm going to add this texture a different way. I have it over here in my libraries. So I'm just going to grab this texture and bring it over here and hopefully drop it into the middle of my document. It doesn't size it as well. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm just going to come over here, put it there, drag it out just a little bit, and click the check mark, and try some different blend modes.
And Jill Ford has a question, another question as well.
Sure.
She says, "Can you explain what this image is of?"
Yes, it's a dandelion clock, which is a dandelion seed. So not the whole dandelion head, but just one little seed off that dandelion head.
Cool.
And I'm going to try some different blend modes with this. These typically aren't where I go for textures, but down in here is where I like. And I like the soft light, although I'll see now today I'm totally feeling the linear light, but soft light is where I went, but it's a little understated. So I can drag in the texture again. I could bring it in from a file, or I could just duplicate this layer. So I'm just going to hit Control J and duplicate that layer and make it twice as strong. And I'm going to try another blend mode. And so this time I went with hard light, which I liked, and then I actually decreased the opacity. But I found that there's texture up in here that I didn't like. It's actually on both these layers, but it didn't bother me when I was just on the soft light. But when I got into here, I don't like that spatter. And a lot of times you find that to be the case when you're putting on a texture. Maybe it's over a flower petal or over a face that you don't want. And there's a way to take care of it. If you were just to add a mask on here and mask over this with a brush. So we've got a brush, blah, blah, blah. And it takes out all the color and takes out everything, and it looks terrible. So there's a better way to do that. I'm just going to bring this back up so I can see all of the color. And I'm going to sample that color. I'm going to sample this dark color right in here. Okay, and then I'm going to let this go back down to where it was with the opacity of around 20-ish%. I'm going to add a blank layer on top, and I'm going to paint that color. And you're going to go, wow, Heidi, that looks amazing. The problem is that is sitting on top of all those layers. And what we need that to do is to only affect that layer below there. So we're going to clip it to it. So if we clip that, then you'll see that it helps to take out some of that texture. The texture is still there from the soft light layer below there, but it made it not as intense for you, but you still kept the color. Okay, so now we've kind of worked globally. There's a few more things I'd like to do, a few little tweaks. I still think I want it overall darker. So I'm going to use that same blending mode to do that. So I'm going to put on an adjustment layer, really adjustment layer. Let's just do exposure. And then we're going to put that in the multiply blend mode. And then decrease the opacity to around 20-ish%. And I like that. I like that overall, but it's a little bit dark here and here. So I'm just going to take it off those areas. So I'm going to decrease my flow a little bit. And I'm going to paint with black, and I'm just going to paint it out of these areas. So if I turn that off and on, I like that better. I like the background a little bit darker, and I like keeping the clock to where you can see that in there a little bit better. Now I want to do what I talked about before about darkening the outside, lightening the inside to help draw the viewer's eye in there. And I'm going to do that the same way, but this time I'm going to paint it in. So I'm just going to do any exposure layer, change that blend mode. Let me get that out of your way. I'm sorry. I don't even realize it's there. Sometimes it's just part of my computer. I'm going to decrease this opacity to around the 20-ish%. I'm going to invert this mask. I want to paint this in as opposed to paint it out. So I'm just going to Control I, back out a little bit. And I've got black, so I need a white brush. I'm going to hit X on my keyboard and make sure that we're soft. And we're at 28%, and then just make this brush big. Whoa! And what did I didn't change my blend mode. Look at that, I'm painting with that color. Oh, I was on the adjustment layer. It wouldn't let me paint on there. It's going, no, you can't.
And what blend mode are you using?
So I'm using the blend mode of multiply, and I decrease the opacity to 16%, which I may bring back up a little bit.
Okay.
I kind of want it more around the 20-ish%.
So you want some subtlety.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Yeah, I think I like it there. 2 more steps and I'm done with this. And we'll move on to another thing. So we're going to do one more adjustment layer, any adjustment layer. This time we're going to go to screen. And we're going to decrease that down. And we're only going to apply this to the middle to help draw your eye in there. So we're going to invert that mask. And I'm just going to apply a little bit of that in the middle. And if you go a little crazy and you find that it's like, oh my gosh, I got some halos there. It's easy to fix. Just change your brush, make your brush a little bit smaller, and just paint it back out. Sometimes we're trying to do this little detailed masking, and sometimes just doing a big soft less is more thing. So my final step on almost all of my images is to do my levels. And I'm going to check that. Let me move this out of your way there. So I'm going to come in. I usually want a fairly decent black point, but I think I'm going to take it off that base. I don't like it there. And then I'm going to bring, because this has spectral highlights, I'm okay with spectral highlights being a little bit brighter than I would other highlights. So I'm okay with that coming in there. And I'm going to take it off the base. So I can do that just by painting with black on that mask. And so I'm going to paint that off. And if we turn this levels off and on, it just kind of takes a film off the image. It just crisps it up and makes it pop, that last little pop. And so if I show you what we did with this image, so we went from there to there. How are we doing on time?
We're doing great. You have approximately 40 minutes.
Okay. Any more questions as we're going along?
No.
I'm not an AI specialist by any means.
Yeah, well, it looks like everybody's really enjoying your presentation. When they get quiet, that means they're enjoying it.
Okay. Okay. So this is Big Ben in Parliament that was shot in London. I'm going to take you through my editing process with this one. So the first thing I need to do is to straighten that because it's kind of tilted and keystoned, and so we need to fix all that. So let's just go down here to transform. And this time I'm going to use the guided. I like that little magnifying glass will show you when you're getting in there, but it's really dark, really hard when it's dark down there. And then one more right across the top here. Okay, so that's a little bit straighter. That looks better. I'm going to put my tool back away. This image had some really weird sensor spots, and if you look, this is actually a TIFF that I already did this because I had to work and work and work to get these sensor spots out, but I left one in to show you. So let's go to our healing tool and visualize spots, and you can see that bugger right down there. So I'm actually going to take out that outside one first. It's like my sensor spot had a halo. And I want to see, oh, I have this turned off because they bug me. So let's pull it in and I can see where it pulled that from because I don't want it pulling from a building. And I want to have it to where it's just on that same field as that one. Or on that same level so we have the same colors. And I think I'm going to do that one the same way. And then we're done with sensor spots. But this one, I did a lot of work to get those sensor spots out. They were strange sensor spots. And let's just go fit. And I'm going to turn those off. And then I'm going to just do some rescuing of some things in here. So we're going to rescue the highlights. open up the shadows a little bit, and add a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity. I don't typically do this, but I really wanted color in here, so I actually added vibrance and saturation in here, which is not typically where I do it. But you know, you have to work each image with what it is and what you see. So at this point, I took it into Adobe Camera, or I took it into Photoshop, because I knew there were some things I wanted to be able to change. And I probably should have done the vibrance and saturation there, but I didn't. And I did Photoshop. And for this one, I need to edit a copy because it had some edits in there. Okay, so we're going to make a duplicate. Just Control J. Make this a smart layer. And when I shot this image, I was really disappointed that it was London and there was no rain, there was no water, there was, I wanted to have rainy, cloudy skies, water on the ground, and there wasn't. So I decided to create my own water on the ground. So with a brush,
you received a compliment from Dave 3D guy. It says learning a couple of new Photoshop tricks here. This is great.
Oh, that's awesome. That's exactly what I want to hear. I was a little intimidated coming to a Photoshop group. I'm like, whoa, what can I teach them?
You have to understand that our group is all over the place in terms of skill level, from beginning, intermediate to advanced.
Oh, so good.
Someone's gonna pick up something new, I hope.
Okay, so my goal here was to create water where there was none. So I increased the clarity and the texture, and I'm going to make this brush a little bit bigger. I usually keep my brush at about 50%, and that's just kind of my standard. And I'm just going to paint this in. And voila.
And you're painting in light.
Yep. Because when you have water on the ground, it reflects the light.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've done. And then I wanted to do a little bit of that everywhere else, but I don't want to use this same brush because I want to add less. So I need to create a new mask. And we're going to do it with a brush. I'm going to do this at a little bit of a lower setting to look to see what I did here. So we're going to do like. And I wanted to add some to Parliament. And Big Ben. And the river. And just kind of add a little bit more of that reflection. Okay, so I was done with that. I was happier with how the rocks look. They were more of what I envisioned in my mind's eye. The sky needs a little bit of help. So I'm going to create another mask for the sky. And I know that sky overlaps into my buildings a little bit, and it definitely overlaps into my lights, but that's okay because I'm planning on bringing down the exposure a little bit, so that's not going to be a bad thing in this case. I think if I tried to mask it out, it would be really obvious. And so I'm going to decrease the exposure about 1/4 of a stop, and I'm going to take the highlights down just a little bit. And open up shadows just the tiniest little bit. And then I'm going to affect the color with the temperature. So I'm going to increase the temperature, just take it to the warm side just a little bit. And I'm going to give it just the tiniest little pop of saturation. Okay, and so now we're going back. So this is what we did going over. And as I looked at this image, I'm like, oh, what else do I want to do? Is it where I want to be? And I thought, what would it look like in black and white? So I made a copy of this layer. So I just made a stamp layer because if I just duplicate this layer, it's going to have all my raw adjustments, and I want to start fresh to make my black and white. Fresh from this point. So I made a stamp layer, and I'm going to make that a smart object. I love smart objects. Once I learned them, my workflow improved tremendously. I used to have edit TIFFs, and I think I have a more non-destructive workflow now. And I'm going to go to filter, Adobe Raw filter. This has become my preferred black and white. I used to use Nick Silverflex Pro and Photoshop, and I really like the black and white conversion here. And so I've ended up coming here. So I'm going to click on black and white, and then I'm going to go into the profiles just like I did when I was in Lightroom and click on black and white. And I must have been really easy this day because I actually chose the very first one, but there are some huge changes between these profiles as you go along because there's so much color in the image. You can have some real differences, but I chose here. And be careful, don't hit the done button. You want to hit the back button because you still want to do some more edits. And here we are in the black and white mixer. Let me change my page, make sure I get to the same place. The reds moved things, but not anywhere in a direction I wanted, so I actually left the reds alone. The oranges take things in a huge direction really quick, and I ended up settling on just +1. And the greens, if you look at the greens, the only place they affect is right around the clock, and it's very subtle, but I like that increasing just a little bit or decreasing. The change, how's that? Aquas, there wasn't really any change with the aquas. Blues changed right at the very top, and I settled on a -23 to kind of darken that down just a little bit. Purples do huge changes, which are not good. And so we are just going to leave purples where they were. Oh, I also like in Lightroom that I can double click these and take this back to 0. I may just have to type 0.
An artist's mind at work.
Then the magentas make some changes right across the middle. I like that, darkening it down just a little bit. So we are there. And now we're going to go back. And then there was a hard decision. Do I like black and white? Do I like color? Do I like black and white? I like color. And I looked at each and tried to decide what I liked. I like the color. I like the color contrast of the color. I like the luminance values that are in the black and white. So why not marry them? So I'm going to marry them. So I took this and I made this layer into a luminosity mode. And so now we have those luminance values of the black and white, and we have them on the color image. I thought it was a little bit strong, so I actually backed it off to about 70%. But I kind of got the best of both worlds there. And then I wanted, not that there isn't contrast here, but I wanted just a little bit more pop of contrast in certain areas. And so I decided to paint on some contrast. So with a blank layer in hard mix mode, in hard mix, your layer is controlled by fill as opposed to opacity. And I'm back this way down because this goes over the top in our paint. And I paint with a gray, 50% gray paintbrush. So we'll just click right there if we're about 50% gray. And then we're just going to paint some contrast. Let me make that brush just a little bit bigger.
That's because you're cute.
A little bit more. So with the painting of the contrast, there we go. So my typical ending step is going to be a levels. I know there's a black point here. I'm sorry, I should just move this whole thing out of your guys' way. I end up moving that thing around all the time. So we definitely have a black point in there. and the white point were right there. And we can decide if we want to move that midpoint, but I kind of like it right where it was. I think we did a good job with the black and white. My husband came in when I was working on this image and he goes, oh, you really need to crop that a little bit. So this last movement is for my husband.
And that's when you tell him to just leave the room.
He was absolutely right, because it does make it better, but I have to give him full credit. So just that little crop helped. Oh, it's going to take forever. It's got to render everything. So there we go. And on this one, I didn't do a light and darken center because it's just there kind of naturally, that it's darkened around the outside and it's lightened in the inside. So I didn't need to make that step. Okay. And this is an underwater shot. So this is an underwater shot. It's in a pool with a 4 megapixel camera, which only shot JPEG. So this is the image. This was after doing some cleanup in there. And then I had another image. Let me just turn off that mask. And there were things I liked about this image, that I liked her hair and her arms. Today I like this leg better, but the day I did it, I like that leg better. So I change all the time. So I wanted to combine these images. But when I masked in what I wanted, there was a little bit of a light difference. So this image is a little bit lighter than the image underneath. So the way to correct that is to do a curves. And I applied a curves to this image. And it's going to come in automatically clipped because the one above it is clipped, but let me show you how to do that. So it'll come in like this. You can clip it here. You can clip it by hitting Alt and going in between there. Oops. It doesn't want to let me. And then just clip it that way, but it needs to be clipped to the layer below it to just affect that layer, because that's when we want to darken. And if we darken that down in the midpoint, we made those match. So we took that and matched it with that. And I'm going to go back to my original one, and I need to clip that. And then as I look between the two images, her face on this image that I had brought over is turned more towards the wall, and this one gives me a little bit more of a face view, so I wanted to bring that image in. So I just cut out that face and put it on there and masked it in. But it was a little bit darker. So I just did the same thing. I lightened that up so that whole thing was more cohesive.
So Dave 3D Guy made a comment. It was kind of addressed to everyone, but it might be good to address it as well. He says, has anyone tried Topaz Photo AI to improve the focus areas of an image like the Parliament photo we saw?
I have not. I haven't played with the Topaz Photo AI. I know they gave it to me when it came out, but I like my editing.
I'm planning to show it a bit later when I'm talking. So if Dave sticks around, you can see a little bit of how it works.
Okay, cool. That'll be great. Oh, yeah.
And maybe I can set my ego aside, and maybe it'll be a good tool for me. Okay, so we came up to here, and then I made a stamped copy, and we can go over that again, because you just have to memorize these keystrokes. So it's just Control, Alt, Shift, E. Nickname is the claw, because you have to put your hand in kind of a claw shape to get it. And then from there, I just came in and filled in those areas to make it one cohesive image. Whenever you shoot underwater, color of light falls off. It filters out very rapidly. You can see we are just right underneath the water, and the reds are already gone. The reds are gone, the oranges are gone. And so if you develop an image that's been shot underwater, you have to bring those back You have to bring those back.
Okay.
Some of the more advanced cameras, not my 4 megapixel underwater camera, you can adjust that white balance before you go in there. But in this case, I didn't have that as an option. So I have to correct the white balance now on a JPEG.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do that. One is with white or with color. Oh, I can talk. One is with color balance. So we know we need reds. And we know we need magenta because those were filtered out. And we want to take away the blue, so we need to go more towards the yellow. And what I'm looking at is skin tones. So you just move around in there, and there's skin tones back. Another way to do that, I'm going to turn that one off, is to do a curves layer. And with curves, you can grab the picker here in the middle and try and find some place that should be kind of a neutral gray. So that moves that, and it kind of did the same thing that I was doing. So the reds are up, greens are down, which is going to be more towards magenta, and the blues are down, which is going to be more towards yellow. I still have another tool that I like better, though. And we talked about this just a little bit. So this is that same layer. Let me turn off that curves. And I still like going into Nik for the Pro Contrast. So I'm going to make this a smart layer. And then I'm going to go into, I'm expecting it to open automatically. It hasn't read my mind yet. Going to Color Effects Pro. And that is interesting, but that's not what we're doing. So Pro Contrast. And I use this tool a lot if I'm not sure if there's a color cast on my image, or if I want to correct a color cast. Sometimes I just want to partially correct a color cast. But you can just come in here and it will correct your color cast. And when you shoot underwater, you also lose contrast, really. And you lose contrast with a 4 megapixel camera. But I'm just going to correct this contrast just a little tiny bit. I'm trying to remember what my numbers were. I was at 3 here. And like 24 here on the dynamic. Okay. So I like where this is going. It feels a little bit more like a skin tone, but her cape, for lack of a better term, I'm not happy with that color, and I don't have to stick with that color. I'd like something that works a little bit better for the image. So I'm going to do a select color. And in the reds, I'm going to adjust that.
It's a manipulator.
So we're just going to adjust these colors to get more of what I had in mind. And I'm liking that better. It's a little bit over the top, so we'll just decrease the opacity. And then I want to paint it in because there's a couple, I can see a couple of spots on her legs and her arms and her face that it's picking that up. So I'm going to invert this mask and paint this in. Make sure that we have a brush. That would be a starting point. And that's a nice soft brush, which it is. And we have a black mask, so we want to paint with white. And I'm going to make that brush a little bit smaller. And my flow is at 26%, which is fine. And I don't have to be real exact because there wasn't a lot of this color, but I just want to make sure I've taken it out of the other areas that I could find a surprise later on. So I like that better. I think that works better with the image. And I like that little tint of that in her hair. So Now we're going to make another stamped layer because I want to start with this as a starting point. Because now we're going to go into the liquidify and make some contour changes on her. So I'm going to make this a smart layer and go into liquefy. And please don't hate me or think that I'm body shaming or anything, but this is an art piece, so I'm going to make it my vision. So I'm going to give her a little bit more of a waist. We can come over here and add more to her waist over here. Because this is shot with a wide angle lens and we're underwater, this leg is abnormally large, and we can fix that. So we're just going to come in and we're just going to make it smaller and make it more consistent with the rest of the body. With this tool, you have to be careful. You can go over the top really easily. You can really warp people out.
I don't know. I think that's cool.
You can freeze areas that you don't want to affect. So I want to change this arm, but I don't want to affect this dress. So I can use that freeze tool. And then come up here, and I'm just going to push her arm up just a little bit. And then I can come back and thaw that area. And I can come and I can freeze over here where I want to do the same thing. And again, come in and just little pushes. And then we can thaw that. If you do something that you don't mean to do and you're past your Alt Z and say I've come up here and whoops, I'm on the wrong tool, and you've pulled that up there and you're going, oh, I really hate that. You can just come back here to your reconstruct tool and just take it back down. But we're underwater, so you can make her hair like have a little bit more wave, and you can add some more schmutz and just kind of have fun with it. And then hit OK. And I'm going to actually open one that I worked on more. And that's this one. And you can see I just kind of brought her. I hopefully didn't go over the top too much. From there, we went to the dodge and burn, and you've seen me do this, so I'm not going to take you through my dodging burning. But I was trying to lighten areas in the fabric that I wanted to add more emphasis to, just to give it dimension. I like having dimension in my photographs. And then I wanted to add a texture. And we brought in a texture before. This one, I'm going to turn on this group. When I added it, I tried different blend modes and I wasn't happy with it. You know, I should just bring in one so I can show you how this one was done. So let me turn this off. I'm on this layer. I'm going to bring this over.
So what's he's up to?
And hit the check mark. And when I went to the different blend modes, I wasn't happy with any of it with how it was looking. Actually, that's not bad in soft light, but it took it a little bit darker than I wanted. So what I ended up doing was just decreasing the opacity. But it looks, the texture looks sharp to me in this really soft environment. I didn't want this soft texture, or this really hard texture in my soft environment. So I made this a smart layer, but I took the opacity back up when I did it. So make this a smart layer. Oh, you know, I think I have to rasterize it first because it came from my library. And then I just went to Gaussian blur. So blur, Gaussian blur. I didn't go that far. So just like 3.2, and it just softens it up a little bit more and it fits more into the environment that it's in. And then I lowered the opacity. And then I actually just cut her out and put her on top. Oops, she's off. That's why she's not coming on top. Oh, and that's on. And then I just masked out around there. So I'm going to put this back where it was. Just hit Control Z, turn that one off, turn this one on. And this is where I ended up after the masking. One last shot is the levels. And then that's this. And then I actually took this image and painted it. And how are we doing on time?
You've got, I think you've got 10 minutes for questions and answers.
Okay. Okay. Because I was going to show you a quick painting. Let me just show you two things.
And I can give you a little bit more and then just do 10 minutes questions and answers.
Okay. Well, let me show you this because this is, I love this point, especially if you have newer people in here as well. So this was a picture that I took of a rabbit and it was in golden hour and the camera took that golden to a whole new level.
Well, just before you go further, Jill Ford has a question.
Sure.
Her question is, what is a smart layer?
So a smart layer allows you to go back when you do the edits on there. It allows you to go back and re-edit it. Normally, if I was in a layer and I did an edit, it's baked in. You can't go back and change that. And I like, let's see, do I have anything open here? Yes, I do. So if I decided on this layer that I wanted a stronger Gaussian blur, I have the option to open that up and change that more. That would not be an option if this was just a regular layer and I had not made this a smart object. Otherwise, it's just baked into your layer. So this is a rabbit, golden, very golden, and I'm going to show you with just 5 edits. 5 edits, how we can make this a better picture. This is not how I suggest you do your edits, but I want you to show you the power of these 5 things. So I'm going to go to the develop module. We're going to set a color band. So we're going to set a white point. I'm sorry, we're going to set the, what's the word I'm looking for here? The temperature. We're going to adjust the white balance, the temperature. So I'm going to pick some place that should be a neutral gray. And that's better. Kind of click around a few times. That's better. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but that's better. You can then go back and adjust the sliders if you want. That's step number 1. Step number 2, this is going to be garish because this is not how I would normally edit, but we're just going to set a white point. And we're going to set a black point. And then, because that is garish, because we need to take down some highlights, open up some shadows, and that's 5. And I would say that that is an improvement over where it was. So we went from here to here in 5 steps. I'm going to do one more just because I can't help myself. And that's to do, I'm just going to add a little bit of a vignette in there. And people are always asking me, what about auto? You know, can I just click auto? We're going to take the same image. This is the same exact image. And I'm just going to hit auto. And we'll see how that does. And so there's auto versus 5 quick, easy steps. Don't use auto. I'm anti-auto. Okay. Let me just hit done.
That could be a name of a new group, Anti-Auto.
Anti-auto. And this is an image that's fairly well developed. I would be happy with this image. So I just want to show you the power of those 2 things. This is I'm hammering this point home. So I'm just going to set that from that image. I'm going to set a white point till it just is starting to come in. Set a black point, and I like a true black point. And so we went from there to there. So I think it's subtle difference. It's subtle, but I think it just removes the film off of your work and makes it better. So I'm going to open this up for questions.
Oh, right now, open up for questions. Okay. Well, I tell you what.
Or unless you want me to show the paint, I can show it.
Well, but there's no questions yet, so go ahead and show the paint.
Okay, I'll do it. And this is just, I'm not going to paint the whole image. I'm just going to kind of give you a demonstration of it. So this was the same image that we worked up, and this is the paint layer that I've done on top. And I'm going to show you how that's done real quick. I'm going to change my workspace because I paint in a different workspace. And just because it has the tools that I need to do that. So I'm going to turn off my paint layer. And if I was going to paint this image, I would make a blank layer on top of here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to pick a mixer brush. And you just, when you're painting on here, you're actually mixing, you're picking up the color and mixing from the pixels underneath here. And I'll turn this off and on in just a second. And you'll see.
That's going to help unify the shape of the leg.
Yes, and because this is, I mean, you can see this is really terrible, but it's 4 megapixels.
Now that's a special brush then.
I have a bunch of different brushes. I was actually taking a class. I still am taking a class on doing this painting. But there's a lot of different brushes out there. And you can make your own brushes. You can pull, if you've got somewhere that you've got that, you can just pull that color into there. Anyway, so, and if I put just a layer underneath here, so if I just do a solid color and a nice obnoxious green, you can see where I've painted and where I haven't. But that's with the paint layer that I did, because I took a lot more care and a lot more time than just trying to bust this out. And then from there, I did some little touch-ups, added some more hair on top.
So the painting technique will be wonderful for the red cloak that's behind her.
Yes. And then I added some more light. And then I put another texture on top of this to also help to unify it. Some more adjustments. Some light rays. You know, all my adjustments must be off because they did not come on when I turned that on. There's the adjustment. There's some light rays. And there's the image. So that was actually my final, that's the final product, as opposed to the photo that we edited.
That's stunning, Heidi.
Thank you so much.
I'm way impressed.
Thank
so
you.
We've got, okay, so one question is this being recorded so that we can watch it again? Yes, it is. So if you join the Photoshop Users Group mailing list, it will be sent out to the mailing list. I'll put the link for you to join on in just one moment. Dave 3D Guy has asked, how can you create a mask for a specific color you want to replace without having to use the dreaded magic wand tool?
You know, I should actually let Steve address that because I know how I do it, but
no, I'm not the presenter. This is my day off.
All right, let me open an image. I'm looking for something that has some nice color range in here. Okay, so this is an image that I was working on, and oh, I'm in the wrong workspace. That's what it is. I'm like, wow, where are my tools? Okay. And I would actually make a mask using TK. I love TK. And I could just click on here. I can click on a color, hit OK, and it's going to make me a mask. And then I can, if I wanted to really isolate, not get those other areas, I would just paint on that mask. Increase my flow so that I can do that a little bit faster. And then I can actually come in here and adjust that to be even stronger. This will help to narrow that down. But that's how I would do it.
Okay.
Now, is TK, you said, is that an add-on for Photoshop that you've purchased?
It's a plugin.
Plugin. Okay.
It's a plugin. It's a $33 plugin. And there's, I know there's always discount coupons, but at $33, you don't really need one.
Yeah, that's
And
nothing.
it has a lot of shortcuts in here. I use this a lot. Like here's my fill, stroke. There's a lot of shortcuts in here. And as far as luminosity masking, it does a great job there.
Nice.
If you can do your color masking, I can do a vibrance. So if I wanted to just boost those colors that aren't boosted, here's vibrance, and I would just put that out to a saturation. And now when I'm increasing the saturation, I'm only doing it on the colors that are less saturated already.
Excellent. That's awesome. I was just looking at a plugin called Lumenzia, and it's for doing exposure blending and luminosity masking and stuff like that. And it looks very cool. I haven't.
This is very similar. I started with Lumenza and I switched over to TK just because other people I knew were using it, and it's always good to use what other people you know are using. And there's great videos. Dave Kelly does TK Friday on YouTube, and so there's just great tools to learn.
Excellent.
So we are at our 15-minute break. I think we're going to take, and when we come back, Angela, you're going to be showing.
I'm going to be showing Mylia photos.
All right. Okay. That I'm looking for. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Mylia photos, using that as your digital asset manager, and how it can work with Photoshop and Adobe Camera Raw. And I'll even throw in a couple of my favorite plugins.
Oh, that is fantastic. Heidi, you were outstanding.
Thank you.
Yay.
Great job, Heidi.
See, that wasn't so bad now, was it? Okay. So we'll come back with Angela. You're welcome to share your screen now, and then I'll put it up when we come back. But in the meantime, we got a 15-minute break. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share my entire screen for the 15-minute timer. So we'll come back. We'll start the timer, and when it's over, we will finish up the second half of our meeting with Mylia, which I think you're going to find very, very interesting. All right. We'll be back. It is about that time.
All righty.
Okay. This is where the fun begins.
Cool. And my colleague JC, he said he is in the backstage area waiting to be let in.
Oh, good. There he is. Hello, JC.
Howdy. How are
Hi.
you?
Welcome to the Photoshop Users Group.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, this is exciting. So, all right. Just a quick little housekeeping here. So, anybody out there who is interested in receiving the recording, join our mailing list. The Photoshop Users Group is free to join. There's a link there inside of Twitch. And for your convenience, I will post it again for anybody who just joined, because sometimes they don't always see the latest, greatest post that I put up here. So I'm gonna place that there. Okay, so Angela and I go way back, and I think it was it Nick was when we first started working together.
It's been a while. I mean, I think I first met you through Dark Rumors, and took some Photoshop classes from you, and we've become friends over the years. And yeah, we've known each other for quite a long time now.
Okay, great. So I think everybody's going to really like this presentation. I didn't know anything about this product until Angela brought it to my attention. And don't worry, I will. It's been crazy hectic lately. So, and then you already know the story, but but I will get my account set up properly very soon.
Well, luckily you have an in. I can help you out whenever you need it.
Thank you.
All right.
The story for this is really kind of funny, because Stephen was presenting for my camera club. I belong to Dark Rumors. It's a photographic club here in San Diego County, and we meet at Balboa Park in case anybody's interested. But Stephen was presenting, and I saw him hunting around in Bridge for a certain image, and it was like, oh, that's on another drive, or that's on another computer. And I'm sitting there going, I have a solution to this problem.
Yes, you did. So I'm gonna let you.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
So,
it's all yours.
I see what's sharing on the screen share there. It looks like somebody else's desktop.
That is my. Is that my desktop? That's my desktop.
Mine.
So I'm going to add you to the stage. There you go.
Excellent.
And then what I'll do is I'll fill the screen with that there, so that way you can focus on your slides.
Perfect. All right. So, like I just alluded to, what we're going to talk about today is a way to have access to all of your photos, your entire media library from all your devices, no matter where you are, and how this works with Photoshop and other Adobe products, because it's super, super simple. So, one of the things that we see a lot of times, especially with creatives, is that we have photos trapped on different devices. We have stuff on our phones, and maybe that's backing up to iCloud, and that's in Apple Photos or in Google Photos, depending on what system you use. And then you have probably, if you've been doing this a while, you have numerous hard drives with lots of images, and not all of them are connected to your computer at the same time, and you don't know where things are. So things are trapped on different devices, and it can be a real treasure hunt to try to find something when you need it. And Mylio Photos has the answer. And no, it's not the cloud. The cloud can be helpful, but that is not our solution. So this is what brings us to Mylio Photos Plus. And Mylio Photos and Mylio Photos Plus, it's an application with an optional paid subscription. What we're going to be talking about today is primarily the paid subscription aspect, because that's what's going to bring you the most benefit in your workflow. If you're already an Adobe Bridge user or a Lightroom user or something like that, the free version of Mylio Photos may not bring enough value to you to switch entirely your system. But once you bring in the power of Mylio Photos Plus with the ability to access all of your media from all of your devices, that's a game changer. So a little bit of background on me. I've been a Lightroom user since version 1. That was my home base and kind of my Bible for keeping everything for my photography. The one thing that kept coming up to me was it was a pain to get my iPhone images in there. I'd end up with a lot of duplicates. And then I couldn't really get all my professional photos onto my iPhone without I didn't want to put them into Apple Photos, because that's just, I didn't want to do that. And, Adobe's cloud was there, but when you're talking about 3, 4, 5+ terabytes of information, that gets cost prohibitive. So you would only have a few of your best there anyway. And so that never really made sense for me to put everything in the cloud. And what Mylio Photos Plus has done is change the game. And with about 12 years of R&D and a real focus on accessibility, control, and privacy, we've come up with Mylio Photos Plus. And it makes your photos available on all of your devices, accessible at any time, and through a peer-to-peer connection, so your devices talk directly to each other. Basically, what you do is you log into your account. When you're logged in with that device, those devices talk to our servers, authenticate, and create a handshake between your different devices, and let your devices talk directly to each other. So you can access your entire library no matter where you're at. So if this sounds too good to be true, I invite you to go to mylio.com/Andrew. I have a special offer there for you. This is for Mylio Photos Plus, but you can download the free trial, try it free for 30 days. And I'll show you this link here again at the end of the presentation. But I assure you, this is awesome and has completely changed the way that I work with my media. So before we dive in too far, I have a short survey. And if we were on something like Zoom, this would be a lot easier. I could just pop a button and give you a survey. But if you have a chance, scan this QR code or go to bit.ly/SDPUG-Mylio1. And this is just 3 quick questions, so we have a better understanding of how you're managing your work today, and if you've heard of Mylio and some of those types of things. It's 3 quick questions, and I'll give you a second there to go ahead and scan that. And then I'll take a look at the results later. All right. So back to our home screen here, and let's go ahead and jump into what we're going to look at today. What I want to show you is an overview of what Mylio Photos is, what it does, how it can be a hub for all of your media. It has really cool search and filter tools, text recognition, face recognition, AI object recognition, and things like that to help you sort and filter your content. And then, like I talked about, also having the ability to get to all of your media with a seamless integration to Adobe Camera Raw, Photoshop, whatever it is that you're working with. So you probably got a little bit from the beginning. Stephen introduced me. My name is Angela Andrew. I'm a fine art photographer, and I will photograph just about anything. I love to travel. I photograph cityscapes, landscapes, all sorts of stuff. I'm also a longtime photo educator, and my primary focus is on workflows and helping people get their stuff organized, get it backed up, keep it safe and secure. And that ties in really well with my day job at Mylio Photos, where I'm a product evangelist and I help people be successful with their software. And here is where I also help people develop the same workflows, make sure their stuff gets backed up and protected, and help them find an efficient and useful way to work with their entire media library. So lots of great fun tie-ins there with what I do. I'm also joined today by JC Figueroa. He is our customer success lead and an underwater photographer. I invited him to join us today because being that this is a Photoshop users group, I'm going to guess some of you are on the fairly technical side and have some questions, and JC can help me answer those. But do you want to say hello for a second, JC?
Hello for a second.
All right. Well, if that's all,
I'm here to help. I'm here to help.
You're awesome. Thank you for taking time out on a Saturday to be here with me.
Of course. My pleasure.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about Mylio Photos Plus. And as I mentioned earlier, Mylio Photos is a free application. It's free to use on one device. So you can install it on your computer. You can install it on your phone or your tablet. And it works just on that device, kind of similar to how Lightroom is meant to be used on a single device, or Lightroom Classic rather. However, when you add in the Mylio Photos Plus subscription, this is what lets you get to your media across all of your devices. Mylio is really unique in that it works on Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS, and any mix of those. So if you have Mylio Photos Plus and you have a Windows computer and an iPhone, this is a fantastic way to get your iCloud library, all those pictures off your iPhone, backed up onto your computer and make them accessible. And if you have a Mac and you use an Android computer, same thing, or any mix thereof. It's pretty cool that all of these devices can talk to each other. And Stephen or JC, if any questions pop up in the chat that I'm not seeing, please feel free to interrupt me.
Okay.
I don't mind.
We'll keep an eye.
All right. All right. So just a few things about Mylio. It makes it easy and enjoyable to browse your entire library, even if you have a massive library. I've got about 110,000 pictures in my library, which I'm sure to some of you is probably modest. Mylio helps people, some pretty big name pros, manage massive libraries in excess of like 2.5 million images. It's really, really fast, uses AI to help you discover and find things. And one of the things that's really great about this is it gets all of my media into one library. So I've pulled in all of my pictures from my phone. I've pulled in all of my pictures from all of my hard drives, all my memory cards. I've even pulled in old social media posts because we have a Facebook downloader, importer, and Instagram. And you can pull in all these old pictures that you kind of forgot about. And that might be the only copy you have of that particular image. So you get everything into one library. You get everything face tagged with facial recognition, and then use that object recognition to easily browse and collect everything into one place. And the coolest thing about this is it's cloud independent. And what we mean by that is you can use the cloud, but it's not required. What Mylio Photos does is it doesn't store your pictures. It helps you manage your storage. So if you want to store things on the cloud, we can help you do that too, but you don't have to. So it makes the cost much more manageable, especially in the long term as you have a scalable, growing library, because we're creating content, creating new images every single day. So are there any questions so far? I'll take that deafening silence as a no.
I think they're ready to see it.
All right. Well, let me go ahead and just go through a few more slides here, and I'll move through these pretty fast because I know that what you're here for is to actually see the application in action. That's the fun part. And if any of you were at the Photoshop Summit earlier this week, you might have seen these slides before as well. So I don't want to spend too much time just, death by PowerPoint. We'll keep that to a minimum. But there are 5 steps that we like to refer to with Mylio Photos. So the first one is to collect. You bring everything together into one library. That's when you bring in everything from your phone, from your hard drives, and you get it all into one place. Then you go ahead and, so that's bringing everything in, get everything organized. Let's see here. We have a guided import tool that helps. Just some screenshots here. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff in this presentation. And I'm just trying to hurry up through some of this to get you to the good stuff. So we gather everything, and it is thoroughly private. I mean, that's something that our company is very, very focused in on, is you stay in control of your stuff. When you bring your images into Mylio Photos, they're stored on your hard drives on devices that you control. If you decide in the future you don't want to use this program anymore, all you're going to have is a better organized library. Everything is still right there in your photo system. We don't put anything in a proprietary format. And any metadata that you might add is all in industry standard format. So it can be read by just about any other program out there. And you gather everything from all of your different devices. I mentioned this. It works great with scan photos if you're into family history and genealogy, things like that. Works really well for that as well. And there's a lot of things inside of Mylio Photos to help you get automatically organized. And I'll point a few of those out to you here when we jump over to the application. Let's see here. There are some slides here that I didn't realize were here. So this just walks you through some of the import steps. You can find things really fast with quick filters. There's a lot here that I didn't realize was here. My apologies, folks. We have, if you are in video, one thing that Mylio does is we have Frame.io support. So Frame.io is also owned by Adobe, and Mylio Photos doesn't work with just photos. It's with photos, videos, and documents. And our Frame.io integration lets you access your projects, download those. And we even have an uploader and a project watcher that we're working on, and we hope to introduce probably within the next 6 months to a year. So a lot of cool integrations coming for those who work on bigger projects like that. Let's see here.
We do have a question if you want it, Angela.
Yes, go for it. I'm just kind of going through my slides here and trying to find the next one that I thought was next.
Dave is asking, does Mylio make use of the metadata in the image file?
Yes.
And he's also asking if it can read photos that are within a PDF document. So,
Well, it can read a PDF document. It's not going to see the individual photos as, it's not going to pull them out as individual photos, but you can certainly read and look at a PDF document within Mylio Photos. Any other questions?
Yeah, the first question he asked was, does Mylio make use of the metadata in the image file?
Oh, yes, it absolutely does.
Actually,
Yeah,
I would say that it does more than any other application out there, because it not only extracts all the EXIF data and adds it to the database so it becomes searchable, or you can filter by it. It does it to a degree of granularity that I haven't seen any other application do. So you can apply a filter and say, I want every photo that I took with this particular aperture and this particular focal length that was taken at this location where this person is in the photo. And that combination of filters to that level of granularity is pretty rare. So yeah, we go very in-depth into not only extracting data that already exists in the file, but giving you the ability to add additional data automatically with face recognition and image identification, and manually by tagging things like geographical location, correcting dates, all kinds of things.
So just a quick little thing here. I popped on the screen. I did go ahead and jump over to Mylio Photos to show what JC was talking about. There is what I've done here is done our quick filters, and I'm in my all photos view, which means I'm looking at every image in my library from all of my cameras, from all of my devices. And I pulled up all my pictures from my Canon R6, everything that's shot between ISO 100 and 1600, and between a focal length of 24 to 110. And that has narrowed my library down significantly. So I'm looking at images that just fit that criteria. And that's really how granular we can get here in our search and filter tools. You can go in here by aperture. You can designate, you want to find everything that's shot at, let's say, only f4. Let's go ahead and pop that in there as well. And there's all my pictures that I shot at f4. There's tons of different parameters that you can set to find things very granularly. And it makes use of all of that metadata that's already in the file. And if you've gone through and you've added, you've changed dates, you've added titles, captions, keywords like that, something like that in Lightroom or another application, Mylio reads all of that as well. So great questions. Keep them coming. All right. So jumping back over here to the slides, a couple of tools that I want to point out that we have that really can make your life a lot easier is we have photo dedupe and photo declutter. So once you get everything into one singular library, you can find and remove all of the duplicates. So if you're like me, over the years, you've probably had some different backup strategies. And as backup technology has gotten better and more automated, this is less of a problem, but you probably have some old hard drives. Or for me, I have old CDs that I did old backups on way back in the day before even Time Machine existed. So I can pull all of this media into my library, go through and find those duplicates and get rid of them and have then a very automated and systematic backup of my stuff. Photo declutter is another really cool tool that I can show you here in a little bit, and that helps you find and remove things that are in burst mode. So if you're photographing your kids playing and you take a bunch of different shots, or you're photographing motorsports or anything with a moving subject and you're just trying to get that one right shot, this helps you group them together by a time factor. So everything that was shot within 2 seconds or 5 seconds, you decide how long, and it groups them together so you can pick the best shot from that set of images. It's really cool, very, very helpful. The next step in the process is to connect, and this helps you bring everything together from all of your different devices. And it also lets you connect to other devices. So if you want to send something to friends, to family, there's many, many different ways that you can connect. And you know, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this as a slideshow. 1 second here. Let's see. You know, let's just jump over to Mylio. This is more fun anyway. So I'm going to just start touring you around here in my library. And we've got a lot of really cool stuff here to go through. I'm going to pull this up to the top, and you'll see that this is kind of a mishmash of everything. So right now I'm over here on the left-hand side. This is the all photos view. And this is everything in my library. You'll also notice here at the top, it says public. So this is a new feature we have called Spaces. And this lets me add categories to different types of images and hide things that are private. So right now I'm showing only things that I'm okay with making public. And that's over here on the side. You can switch between private, guest, everything. There's some ones that are built in, and you can make custom spaces. So these are like workspaces that you can really designate. I only want to see my work, this project that I'm working on, or I only want to see my family photos. Because you're bringing everything into one library, having everything can be a little overwhelming. So this is just one more way to view things in a more organized fashion. So right now I'm in that public space and I'm showing things that I'm happy with everybody seeing. But we've got, some articles that I took pictures of because I wanted to throw out the magazine, but I wanted to remember those specific things. I've got some cat pictures from my iPhone. I have pictures from my recent trip to New York. These were all taken with my little Sony pocket camera. Pretty cool little device. And interspersed in here are some iPhone photos. And you can see what my library looks like. There's just a ton of stuff in here. But if you want to get organized and see things without having to do a lot of work, Mylio makes that easy. So the next view down here is our calendar view.
So T Selvan has a question.
Sure, go for it.
Did you answer the question on can you browse my folio from within other software? For instance, if you need to use a photo reference to give an AI image generator?
I'm not sure. Let's see. Can I do photos from within other
I
software?
can answer that if you want, Angela.
Go for it, JC.
Yeah, so the question is, can you browse your Mylio photos from other software? And the great thing about your Mylio Photos library is that it's not a locked proprietary library like when you put things into Apple Photos, for example. Your photos are visible in the file system. So in Mylio, you can go to any photo and ask Mylio to show you that photo in the file system, and it'll open up the Finder or Windows File Explorer and show you where that file is. And from there, you can reference to any other application. You can also send photos directly from Mylio to any third-party application for editing or other functions. So you can find a photo you want, say open with Photoshop. Mylio will launch Photoshop, will load that photo in there. You can do any changes you want, and then you can complete that round trip and bring it back to Mylio. So Dave, the answer is yes. You can browse your Mylio photos from within other software because the Mylio photos are simply in folders in your file system. However, you organize them in the folder view, which Angela is going to show you here in just a second. She's only on the second of 6 views. You can see out.
Oh, so I'm sorry. Then T-Cell has had a question on using dedupe. Can you select from which device the duplicate is removed?
So that's a great question.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead. I'm going to just launch the photo dedupe tool here real quick. And it's going to go ahead and scan my library. And what it's looking for are exact duplicates. And if you're just starting out, I do encourage you to read these blue boxes, but to just go ahead and close that up. Right now, it's filtering to just my 2023 calendar view. I can go ahead and close that, and it'll show everything from my entire library. So you can see I have quite a few duplicates that I need to sort through. But what we can do is we can filter by a certain folder. So I can go into my folder system here, and let's say I only want to deduplicate things that are in my 2023 folder. So you can go ahead and narrow it down. And what that's doing is it's looking at that 2023 folder, but it's comparing it to everything in your library from all of those different locations. You can then go down to auto check, and you can say, add a folder duplicates may be in. And let me go ahead, and I'm going to just once again add this 2023 folder and select that. And it's right here. So I want to say I only want to keep things that are in this particular folder. Anything that's a duplicate, I want to flag those to remove. So I'm going to keep those and remove things that are not in that folder. So I'm going to go ahead and run auto check, and anything that's not in those folders. So here, these ones are in, I had edited these on my iPad in Lightroom Mobile, so they came back in that way. So I have these duplicates. Here are my originals over here. So I'm going to want to delete these and keep these. And the cool thing that's happening here, if you see some of this metadata that's yellow on the one that I'm keeping, it's actually going to merge the metadata from the one that I'm getting rid of and add it to the one that I'm keeping. So then I could just say delete checked, and it's going to keep the ones that are in that 2023 folder and get rid of the other ones that are elsewhere. So hopefully that answers this question.
And Angela, can I add something? Because In their question, they were saying they wanted to remove a duplicate from a specific device. And the important thing to understand about Malio and your Malio photo library is that your entire library is replicated across all of your devices. So every single one of your devices within the Malio application is going to have the entire library. So my phone has all 50 or 100,000 of my photos. What Malio does is it's going to look at the available storage on any device and put proxy images. So duplicates are going to be removed from every device. And the devices that are designated to hold the original file, like a computer with a lot of storage or a NAS or large external hard drives, they will keep those original files, but remove any duplicates of the same file. So I hope that helps explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dave 3D Guy has another question. If my folio is meant to let us avoid having to use the cloud, what about those of us who have a majority of our images in a cloud server? Can my folio access them? Good question.
So yeah, that is a very good question. Let me jump. I'm going to go ahead and close out of the photo dedupe here. And I'm going to jump over to my devices here so you can get an idea of all the different devices that I have attached. And you'll see that I have external hard drives, several of them, and these are ones that my entire library is replicating to. So these are essentially backups. I also have Google Drive here. I have Backblaze B2, and that's backing up my entire library as well. So when you're adding in media to Malio Photos, you can add it in from different sources. So if I go ahead and click this, we can add from an online service. You can import from Instagram, Facebook, Frame.io, Google Photos Library, and Flickr. Now it's just a one-way import, and that gets everything basically out of the cloud so you can manage it locally. If you want to add back in a cloud for storage, that's a separate upload. So depending on what cloud service you're using, like if you're using Apple Photos, what it does is it goes ahead and brings all of those that media to your local drives. It doesn't take anything off of your iCloud, but it doesn't resave them to your iCloud. So hopefully that clarifies that. So here's my Apple Photos. That's all my media from my Apple Photos that Malio is bringing in. So if you don't want to pay for iCloud storage, this way you can store it locally. And if you are wanting to store things on the cloud is not bad. But one thing I do recommend is don't let the cloud be the only place that you're keeping it. So I'm recommending a 3-2-1 backup scenario, which means you have at least 3 copies of your data on at least 2 different types of media, and with one of them being offsite. So the cloud can be a great offsite option, but I wouldn't let that be the only place you store your stuff. JC, is there anything you'd add to that?
I would add that anything that you can access from your computer can be a source in Malio. So if there's a Dropbox folder in your computer that your computer can see, you can point Malio to it and say, go ahead and copy the photos that are in this source to my local storage. And what Malio will do is basically read from the cloud in that instance and bring it over. What we don't recommend you do is you don't link, because Malio has the ability to link a folder and keep watching that folder repeatedly. Don't link a cloud service into Malio, because then you're going to have contention. You're going to have 2 different systems that are meant to do replication, something like Dropbox and Malio, in contention with each other. So that's the only caveat. But if you can see it with your computer, you can import it into Malio.
Yes, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump back over here to our calendar view. So even if you don't want to go in and edit anything, change any folder locations, you just link these folders and you have stuff from a bunch of different locations in your Malio Photos library. This is one of the areas where I say Malio has auto-organized things for you. It reads the metadata that's in those files, and it automatically groups them by date. Nothing is moved, but I can then browse my entire library, regardless of what device it's on, by this calendar. So I can go ahead and jump here into 2023. I can see all of my pictures here from this year. I can go into October, see all of my pictures from October. And then I can even go in and click on a specific date and see all of the pictures from that date, regardless of which device it was captured with. So this is a really cool way to just browse and enjoy your library. Next up, we have the map view. And let me go ahead and just zoom out here so you can get a better look. This puts all of your pictures with GPS information on the map. So you can go ahead and zoom in on a specific area. You can even search up here at the top to find a specific location. And as you zoom in, you have more pins to look at, and you can easily find things. So if you are somebody who finds things based on where they happened, this is a great tool. And if you have images, let's say from a mirrorless or DSLR camera that doesn't capture GPS information, or you've turned it off because it's a battery hog, I know that's why I've turned mine off. You can easily grab and drag and drop pictures onto the map and manually add GPS information so it shows up in this way without having to go in and necessarily know the exact coordinates. So it's a really fun way to go ahead and browse your library. So for instance, I can go ahead and type in San Diego. It's going to go ahead and zoom in on San Diego and see all these different pins. And if I decide to zoom in closer, those pins start to spread out. And I can go ahead and find things based on where they were captured. So I can go out here and let's say these ones out here over the ocean. This is obviously after I was taking off from the airport, pictures from the air as I was flying somewhere. So really cool way to go ahead and browse your media in the map view. There's also the people view. So I mentioned earlier that Mylio has facial recognition, and it makes it very, very easy to tag the people in your life, whether this is friends, family, colleagues, acquaintances. You can go through and name everybody and then find their pictures really, really easily. So I can go here and find all the pictures of my cousin Adam. Very, very simple. You can see some I have in here from when he was a baby, you know, all the way through, you know, the years. I can see all these pictures. And if I want to see them right now, they're zoomed in on his face. I can go ahead and click this and I can turn off zoom to face and see those in context with everyone else who's in the image and quickly browse those photos. Let's say here, let me find one here. So these ones here, we were on the beach. I want to find all the pictures from that day. I can right click on that image and I can say, show those in the life calendar, and I can see all of the pictures from that particular day. Or I can click on a picture and say, you know what, I want to see this one, but I want to see everything that was in that same folder. And I can maneuver around my library very quickly and easily and find things that are related. And that makes it really easy to get around and to get to specific images when you need them. So from facial recognition to our albums view, albums are similar to collections in Lightroom. So these are manual collections you can put together for a variety of different reasons. I have some for my portfolio, for different from articles that I've written, club submissions for critiques and competitions, different trips that we've taken, and so forth. So you can group things in however you want. I'll come into some of these here in a little bit and show you some of the demos that I have for you. And then folders. So this is the one that's probably going to be the most interesting to everybody here. These are the actual folders that I've linked from my hard drive. So when I browse these folders and I'm going through and working with them, I can rename things, and it renames in my hard drives. I can move things from folder to folder, and it physically moves them. But what's even cooler here is I'm going to go ahead and show you from, let's see here. Let me do this from my iPhone. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my iPhone here really quick. And I'm going to share my screen. Cross my fingers that this works. Just takes a second. There we go. So what you're seeing now is Mylio photos on my iPhone. And if I go here to my folders view, these are the exact same folders. So I can remotely manage my file system from wherever I'm at. I can go into my photos here and I can see every single folder of all of my images. I can work on these images. I can change the metadata. I can move them around. I can delete them. And even if I'm offline, once I have an internet connection, my devices will then again be able to see each other, and all of those changes will sync back up. So no matter what device I'm using, I can go through and be able to work with these images. So again, I still have those same views. So here's my all photos, my calendar view, my map view. And you have all of these things available to you on all of your devices, which just makes working much, much easier. I have that same ability to do this with my iPad. So when I don't feel like being at my computer in my office, I can go grab my iPad, sit on the sofa and watch TV and work on my pictures from my iPad. And I even have the option to be able to get to my high resolution, unmodified images if I want to work on them in Lightroom or Photoshop or some other application on my iPad. So that's really
my favorite way
awesome.
to use Mylio is iPad on a hammock.
Yes.
Much better than sitting in front of the computer. We have two more questions, Angela, if you want to address them really quick.
Absolutely. What we got?
Dave 3D Guy is asking if I pull images from Facebook that have people or locations tagged in them in Facebook, can Malio see those tags?
I don't believe so. JC, do you know the answer
Well,
definitively to that?
Malio is going to read any metadata, any tags that adhere to a standard. So if the service or the application that tagged those images uses IPTC standards, then Malio will bring those images in. If they're using a proprietary standard, then the likelihood of Malio reading them is no. So that's the simplest answer.
And I have also noticed that Facebook tends to strip metadata.
Yeah.
So if you had metadata that you added before you uploaded it, chances are it stripped it out, and those tags and such, at least in my experience, are just in Facebook.
Yeah. So actually, Malio's been around for a few years, and it used to be that when you link to Facebook, some of the people data would come in. It doesn't anymore. Facebook has changed a lot of their privacy practice. So when you're connecting, when it's a third-party application like Malio connecting to somebody's photo stream, a lot of the metadata is stripped and removed. We have another question, which is very apropos to one of our new features. And the question is, can I share my library or part of it with someone for collaboration on a project?
That is a great question.
It's almost like we planted it. We didn't.
Pardon?
It's almost like we planted that question and we did not. I don't know who this person is.
So yes, we do have mechanisms for doing that. So the spaces aspect that I showed you earlier, this is a great way to be able to share your library with different people. So what you would do is, if you have a Malio Photos Plus account, with that account, you can add unlimited devices and unlimited images. And what that means is if you're working with a trusted collaborator, you can give them access to your account. And then you can assign a space to their device. So let's say you only want them working on the work space, and you can even pin protect it so they can't get out of it and see the rest of the things in your library. That gives them access, and you can even control what they're able to access there. So let me go ahead and jump in here, and let's go here into edit. You can passcode protect it. You can control what they're allowed to see as far as the different elements of the library. You can say, don't show images in the folders view. And then you can manage specific actions, permissions of what they're allowed to do. So let's say under files and folders, you don't want them to be able to delete things. They can add, they can modify, or maybe you don't want them adding anything either, but you just want them to be able to give feedback or add metadata on what's there. So you can very granularly control what people are allowed to do on that device. Now, the one caveat I would give to using spaces is this works brilliantly if you're sharing this with them on a tablet or a phone, because those have closed file systems. People can't go digging around and mucking around in the file system very easily on those types of devices. However, if you're on a computer, there are still things that are going to be saved into the file system. And if that person wants to go digging around in the file system on that computer, they still have the potential to see things that maybe you don't want them to see. So that's why I do say this is for trusted collaborators. Another option we have that we just added, and this isn't so much for collaboration, but it is brilliant for sharing, is we have shared albums. So if I go ahead and jump onto this fallen leaves category and open up my left sidebar here, or my right sidebar, you'll see that I have a published shared album and a link. I can go ahead and go to this link or share this link with anybody I want, and this will share those images with them. And even you have the option to have a downloadable archive of that media so they can get to that if you want to. So this is just another mechanism for making that happen. JC, is there anything else you would add?
No, that's pretty much it. The feature that goes along with spaces is called remote control. You can go into a device and assign a specific space and not let that device access any other spaces. So that's what Angela is showing here. So if your collaborator is using an iPad, you can say they can only be in their workspace and not get out of that space. So you can remotely control how devices are managed and what those devices can access. And we have another question, which is, do I need to have specific image folders designated for Malio to access, or can Malio scrape an entire drive for images?
So it doesn't scrape your drive. You do have to tell Malio what folders you want it to view. And that gives you control over what's there. JC, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, we intentionally don't have a full scan scraping tool because Malia supports a lot of file formats. It supports not only photo and video file formats from pretty much every camera manufacturer out there as raw files. So yeah, you can see raw files from almost any camera directly on your phone, which is pretty cool. But
And
we
this
also
is only,
support,
this is just what's in my library, not what we all support, but this is just what's in my library.
correct. But we also support document file types like PDFs, text files. We also support Microsoft documents like Doc, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So if we just went and scraped your drive, you might end up with a lot of things in your library that you didn't want. So that's why we allow people to specifically designate. But you know, if you have a hard drive full of folders, all you have to do is put all your folders into a parent folder and then link that parent folder to Malio, and then everything would come in.
Perfect. All right. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of editing fun, because the whole point of this presentation was not just to show you what Malio could do on its own, because it does have some basic editing tools. If we go over here to our edit panel and I click on to an image here, we do have our basic editing here. We've got our white balance, our tonal corrections, color, and so forth. So you can do basic editing without even leaving Malio photos. And this is completely non-destructive. But I found, because I've been doing photography for a long time and I'm very used to Adobe products, and as a long-time Lightroom user, I do like that Lightroom workflow. And so my workflow is actually very similar to what Heidi was showing earlier, although I will say she has some mad Photoshop skills. I dabble with Photoshop, but she's good. What I'm going to do here is find a couple of images, and I'm just going to show you how easy it is to go back and forth between Malio photos and Photoshop. So let's go ahead and find this image right here. And this is a really cool one that I took in New York. This was it just last week? I'm losing track of time here, but this was very recently. You can see we've got some beautiful fall colors. And I'm going to go ahead and close up the edit tab over here. I don't need to look at that. All I need to do to open this in Photoshop is go up to Photo. And right now, because Photoshop is the last app that I use, it's the first one listed here, but I can also go here to Open With and find any application on my computer that supports this file. And if I don't see it in the list, I can just pop down here to Other and quickly select that application. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and open that with Photoshop. And you have the option here to edit a copy with Malio adjustments. So if you made edits in Malio, you can send a TIFF. Or I'm going to go ahead in this case and just open up my raw file. Because it's a raw image, it's going to pop up with Adobe Camera Raw. And then I can go ahead and do my edits, much like Heidi was doing, to just make this image look better. So you can see I've already done a few things. And this is one thing that's very, very cool about Malio Photos is because it uses industry standard metadata, when I edit in Adobe Camera Raw, ACR's edits are also saved to that XMP file. So I just opened up this image. I had already done some edits. So here's the raw image. And there's my image with these edits already saved. And I just had to open up that raw file to see those edits and pick up where I left off. From here, if I want to have these edits showing in Malio, all I need to do is export a copy. And I can do that very easily by exporting a TIFF or a JPEG, whatever you like. I typically go with a TIFF because I like the higher quality archival file. And that'll save it back to that same folder location where my image is. And because Malio is constantly scanning and reading that folder, it'll automatically bring it into my Malio Photos library. But before I do that, I want to do a couple of extra things to this image. So just to give you an overview of what I did so far is I did some work here with my highlights and my shadows, and I did a little bit with my color. I did a custom white balance. Actually, you know what? I think we have time. I'm going to go ahead and just restart this one, do this from scratch. So let's go ahead and reset that to default.
I didn't know that. Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to jump down. First couple of things I usually do on the project is make sure my chromatic aberrations are taken care of, my profile corrections. Yeah. And because we've got some architecture here I was pointed up a little bit with the camera, I'm going to go down to my geometry. And let's see what an auto correction here looks like. I think that did a pretty good job. I'm looking at my verticals here. Everything looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and run with that. And then I also want to do a slight crop here along the bottom because this little bit down here I find to be distracting. So I'm going to jump up to my crop tool and just grab from the bottom here. My aspect ratio is locked and just pull that in a little bit tighter. Go ahead and hit return on the keyboard. And that image is looking pretty good. But now I want to start working with some of the color and the tones. And I'm going to go into my color next. And let's set a white balance. So I'm going to grab my white balance color picker here and find an area that's an approximate neutral gray. So we can just start clicking around, and you'll see that it adds a little bit more warmth, a little bit more dimension, depending on where we click and how the light around it's being affected. So I think that's pretty good. We'll go ahead and run with that. And for this image, I want to use Steven's technique that he was showing at our camera club about a month ago. And, you know, he had taught this before, and I'd seen it and I love it, and I'd forgotten about it. So I started doing this again, and I'm really liking the results I'm getting. So we're going to pull the saturation all the way down to nothing. And then we're going to go back up to our light, and we're going to work just with our tonal values. And I'm going to go ahead and pull our highlights down. So we have some really nice bright areas, but I want to go ahead and pull in. I'm going to go ahead and put my color picker back since that's wanting to hang out there. There we go. I want to zoom in and take a look at those color values. Let me go ahead and change this to 100% and pull back a bit more detail in those brightest areas. And then let's go ahead and zoom out and go down here. Oh, why my zoom is being really funny right now. 100%. Yeah. And go to some of these darker areas, and we want to pull out detail out of those shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up pretty significantly. Got some nice detail down there. Zoom back out. And we've got a pretty nice histogram right now, but looking at this, the visual appeal of it is it's pretty flat, pretty dull. Like we've pulled down those highlights and pulled up those shadows, which makes for a very low contrast image. So we want to add some of that contrast back in. And that's where I'm going to go down to effects. And I'm going to use the dehaze, clarity, and texture. So dehaze does a really beautiful job of adding back in some texture and clarity and all of that throughout the entire image. You'll see we got more texture up here in the clouds, more dimension throughout the image. And then as we go back up to clarity and texture, we're going to target different tonal areas of the image. So clarity is going to go for your mid-tone contrast. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And you'll see that's just making everything look much more defined, making those tones have a lot more definition from each other. And then texture is going to target those highlight areas. So pull that up, and we see we've got some really nice texture and detail here. Now this is actually pretty cool as a black and white image, but I want to bring it back to color because this had those beautiful fall foliage down here, and I want to keep that. So here's where I'm going to go back to my saturation and start moving that back up to the right. We want to watch this to make sure we're not making the sky look, you know, kind of like that toxic blue, and we want to keep the colors here in the foliage looking nice. So we just kind of watch as we pull it up to the right so we get to the point we like it. And very rarely using this method do I pull it back up to 0 or even plus. If needed, I can always add a little bit of vibrance, and vibrance targets the less saturated areas of the image. So if it needs a little bit extra, you can always pull up a little bit on the vibrance. And I think that looks beautiful. The last thing I would do here is under effects. I usually add a really subtle vignette. Between 11 and 14 is kind of my sweet spot, but you do you figure out what works for you. And I think that looks really good. So there's the before and the after. And from here, I'm going to zoom in one more time here. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at 200%. And you'll see that we've got some noise up here. Now, this was shot at ISO 100, but I did do some pretty heavy flinging of my sliders to get out that contrast and to bring out some of that detail. And that did bring a bit of image noise into the image. I'm also using a little Sony pocket camera. So even though it's got, I think 24 megapixels or something like that, that smaller sensor still means that it's going to have some image noise, especially when you start editing heavily. Steven, I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Do you know where that's coming from?
So good. Gary's on board. Everybody else is on board.
It might be Steven.
Yes.
So apologies for that. From here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is open this in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and just click open. And I'm going to use Topaz Photo AI. So I know somebody earlier had asked about using Topaz Photo AI. I use it all the time. And especially in images like this, it just cleans it up a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and do a Command J to duplicate my background layer. There we go. And go up to Filter, Topaz Labs, and Topaz Photo AI. And The difference between Topaz Sharpen and Denoise and Topaz Photo AI is Topaz Photo AI took the Sharpen, the Denoise, the technology that's in Gigapixel, and so forth, and put it all into one application. So you don't have to go jumping around to different applications for different things. I find it to work really, really well at this point. The first version of it wasn't so great, but we're on version 2.1.0 now. It's working really, really well. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down so we can take a look at the sky, because that's where the bulk of the issue was. And because we're streaming, I'm going to go ahead and jump this into like 400% so you can really see what's happening here. You can see that on the right, it's really cleaned it up. Got a nice smooth sky. We still have good definition on our lines over here. And if I take the line and move this over, you can see how much that's even cleaned up the building. We have more definition on that fence there, on the building, on the bricks. And overall, it's just a really magnificent change. And keep in mind that if it's looking a little bit pixelated, if you're seeing that come through, we are at 400%. So this is definitely more than I would typically be looking at it. But I wanted you to be able to see that difference. If I go ahead and jump back to 100% and just very carefully look at these edges here on the building, you'll see that they're just much more defined. So when it's gone through and it's done its AI tool, it is just removing some noise. And it takes a look at your image and it just decides what it needs. Now you can go through and you can alter these things, but letting it just kind of take the wheel and decide what's happening, it does a pretty good job. And it also has this minor deblur, which is adding a little bit of sharpness. So I don't necessarily need to go down to the sharpening to add any other sharpness. I think this looks beautiful. And then I can go ahead and save this back to Photoshop. Give that a moment. And now I have my nice clean version of this image. And what I can do here is just simply hit save. And it's going to automatically pop it back into the folder where the original lives. I'm saving it as a TIFF. That's my preferred file format. Click save and OK. And then once that's done, I can jump back over to my Leo Photos, go back to my grid view here. And you can see that my edit now is right next to my original. So there's the edit, or there's the original, and there's my edit right next to it. And I think that's just brilliant how quick and easy it is to work between my Leo Photos and Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop. So any questions on that so far?
Not so far. We do have some questions from Heidi regarding integration with Lightroom. So she's asking, when you rename files, does that cause a conflict with Lightroom? And can you work in Lightroom to mark items for deletion? It would be cool to call from my couch poolside. You get the picture.
Yes. Okay. So
there's a lot of calling tools in Mylio.
Yeah, Mylio has some great culling tools. Let me jump over to go here to the albums. And one of the recent presentations I did for VSC, this was this one. So we have a tool called Quick Review Mode. So if you bring a shoot into Mylio and you just want to sit there and cull, and you want to do this on mobile, you can do it on your computer as well. Go to the More menu, and you choose Quick Review. And it puts you into this mode where you're really focused on the images. And you can use on the computer, use your keyboard shortcuts. It's the same as in Lightroom: P for pick, X for reject, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your star ratings. And once you do that, it'll automatically advance to the next image. If you're doing this on a mobile device, and actually, you know what? Let me do that really quick. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up on my iPad and show you how this works on the iPad. Because with a mobile device, a tablet or a phone, you have touch gestures you can use with this. So if you have a keyboard attached to your iPhone, you can do that as well, but you don't have to. So let me go ahead and grab this. Looks like it's popped up on my other screen. Come on. One second. Like it's trying to work, but it's not actually working. One moment. I can do it from my phone if I need to. There it goes. Excellent. So now you're seeing my iPhone, and I'm going to jump again to that same view that I was just in. And let's see here. So VSC, :organize, my quick review stuff here. So I can, again, go up into the More menu in the upper right, choose Quick Review. And it's the exact same image that I'm looking at. From here, if you have the keyboard attached to an iPad, you can use those keyboard shortcuts as well. But the beauty of the gestures is you can go through and just mark them. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to one that I haven't marked here. And just by touching it in this film strip there at the bottom. And you can swipe to the right to keep it. You'll see it added a pick flag. I can swipe to the left to reject it. And I can move my finger up and down on the screen. You see those stars going up and down, and I can quickly add a star rating. And then again, it jumps to the next image. And if you mess up, you do something wrong, you go, okay, you know what? I want that one to be a 4-star, not a 3-star. You can go back and change it. You just have to touch back on the film strip and it jumps right back. So that's probably the easiest way to call in Mylio. And I can do this from any of my devices. It doesn't have to be just from my computer. And I can go through and do that wherever I want. You can do that while you're standing in line at the grocery store on your phone. It's pretty amazing. So there's that. There's also, I mentioned the declutter tool. And this is if you're working through a series of images that are burst mode. And so I had a couple of years ago, went out to the Verona drag strip with Pete Liebig. And I think he's been to some of these meetings before too. Really cool guy. He's the photographer out there. And so he got me onto the track and I'm able to take all of these pictures of the drag strip. So I can go down to their tools and choose photo declutter. And what this does is it groups together the images so I can focus on the ones that are similar. And at the top here, you see a slider for within. And this lets me change how long of a batch that I'm looking at. So when I'm shooting something like motorsports, it's going to be probably around 5 seconds. So I can set that length of time to be the batch that I'm looking at. From there, I can go ahead and take a look at these images. And you can see how they change from frame to frame. And then I can decide which ones I want to keep. So, you know, maybe that one's kind of cool, but the rest of these, maybe not so much. And it just jumps to the next image. And then it takes me to the next batch. And then I can go ahead and go through that batch and the next batch and so forth. And when I hit the back arrow, it'll have all those options or all of those images that I wanted to get rid of with the X. And I can simply delete them from my library and get rid of the ones that I don't need. So that's a really great culling tool as well. Any questions on those? All right.
Heidi's asking if the flags and picks show up in Lightroom.
That's a very good question. So Lightroom's flags are not industry standard. Isn't that the strangest thing? So if you do it in Adobe Bridge works. If you do it in Lightroom, Lightroom's flags do not use the industry standard. So flags between Lightroom and Mylio do not work. Star ratings work, color labels work, flags do not, which is very frustrating. But that's the reason why. So I've taken to doing all of my culling in Mylio as opposed to doing it in Lightroom. I don't use Lightroom all that much anymore. I still do get in there because it's still a cool program and I'm very used to it. It's what I know. But, you know, I do more and more of my work here in Mylio. All right. So from here, let's go ahead and do a little bit more editing because I think that's the really fun stuff. So we went ahead and edited this one here.
And you've got about 15 minutes left if you want to have a 15-minute questions and answers.
Perfect. Good to know. I think we'll be good. All right. So a couple of other images that I did here. This is one that I captured in New York. Really cool, kind of abstract of the architecture. Again, this is the edit that I did with this. And to show you again how this metadata is saved in an industry standard format, my edits from this one, I can pick back up where I left off in Adobe Camera Raw by simply opening up this raw file again. So I can go ahead and open that up, tell it to prefer the raw. And when I open that, it's going to go back to that edited version that I had. So if you ever want to redo edits, so in this instance, I have a baked in version with my changes. This is a TIFF file. If I open up the info panel here on the right, you can see that this is a TIFF. And if I go back one, we're looking at a DNG file, and this is from my iPhone. And then I can always go back into Adobe Camera Raw or even Lightroom. So this is another, if you're using Lightroom on different machines and you want to be able to pick up those edits, as long as you tell Lightroom to save its edits to XMP, which is in the catalog settings, those XMP files can be transferred via Mylio from device to device, and you can pick up editing on different devices, which is really, really fantastic. This also works with when I'm editing on my iPad in the evening on the sofa, and I want to use Lightroom on my iPad. When I do that, it's those XMP files are saved with that file, those edits. And then when they get back to my computer, I can merge those back in with my original files, which is just awesome. So there's some really great workflows that you can do both mobile and on the computer with Mylio Photos, being able to access your library from all of your devices. It's super powerful. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that one right now. Since that one's done, let's go ahead and close this one up and jump back over to Mylio and take a look at a couple of other images here. It seems like I flagged a couple more to look at. Oh yes, this one. So this is a really cool restaurant that we ate in one night in New York. And this is just an iPhone shot. We were sitting there at dinner time, and I want to make this really kind of come alive. So I'm going to do some of those same edits that we just walked through with that fall colors picture. I'm going to go ahead and open this up in Photoshop and click continue. And you can see I've already done some edits here. So what I'm going to do is just reset this back to the default. Come on. Why are you not letting me reset? Or is it default? It is default. Okay, we are. All right, so the first thing I want to do here, again, I usually start with my optics, remove the chromatic aberrations and do the profile corrections. And there is a little bit of a tilt to this. So I'm going to go ahead and do my geometry, see if auto does it. Actually, I think auto made it a little bit worse. So I'm just going to go here to the guides and do it this way. And I'm going to grab the very edge of this mirror up here. Come down right about there. And then here along the bottom, the shelf, we'll grab that like so. And that just straightens it out nicely. Now I still feel like this is a little bit tilted up here. So I'm going to grab the handle here at the top. Bring that in a little bit, wrong way. You can grab that, and you can always just make these little slight adjustments to get it to more to what it feels right. So truly straight is not necessarily what feels right. And I think Heidi was mentioning that earlier too. So sometimes when you get it truly straight, it still feels a little bit warped because that's not the way our eyes are used to looking at it. So you can make those little fine adjustments by grabbing those handles and just making a subtle little correction, and it straightens things out a little bit differently. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and hit return on the keyboard to be done with that. And then let's go ahead and go up to our color. And again, I'm going to use Steven's method here of pulling all the saturation out and then looking at our total values. So again, I'm going to pull those highlights down. We're wanting to get some nice detail over here in these brightest areas and these bottles over here. And I think this is just the coolest picture. All the colors and textures between all of the different foreign monies here up on the mirror, and all of the different bottles. I just think it's such a cool, fun photo.
It's just making me thirsty.
It does that too.
Angela, we have a question from Dave. Can Mylio handle batch processing or save image adjustment presets?
So if you're editing within Mylio, yes, you can batch process from within Mylio. So if you're using the editing tools there, absolutely. The other thing you can do is you can open up multiple images from Mylio Photos into other applications. And I can show you that here in just a moment. This will be a pretty quick edit, and then we can do a batch process. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and pull my shadows up. We're going to get some more detail down here in some of these darkest areas. All right, that looks pretty good. And again, if we look at this right now, this looks really flat. We've taken out all the contrast, so we're going to add some back. So I'm going to grab that dehaze. And I love how that preserves so much more detail and kind of just makes everything pop and look three-dimensional. Add some clarity. And in this one, I'm going to add actually quite a bit of texture because there's so much cool detail over here in these brightest areas. And the texture really brings out the contrast in those brightest areas. So that looks really cool tonally. So let's go ahead and bring back some color. And you can see those colors just pop. And we're still at like -23. And that's because of those adjustments we've already done. So you don't want to take it up too high. Maybe keep it there around -30 and then just maybe add a little pop there of vibrance to brighten up and add color to those least saturated areas. I think that looks really cool. And then finally, let's go ahead and add a vignette. And this one, I'm going to add a pretty strong vignette. So about -16 is about as high as I'll go on a vignette in Lightroom. There's other applications where I'll do stronger, more feathered vignettes. But with this particular vignetting tool, 11 to 16 is kind of my sweet spot. So I think that looks pretty good. Now, what I can do here is a couple of things. I could save this as a TIFF file next to my original in Mylio. So I'm going to go up here to the export. And again, I could save this as that TIFF, and that'll put it right next to my original. Mylio also gives us the option to do what we call a display copy. And this tells Mylio to stack that edit with the original. So you're only seeing one file there. That's what I want to do here, because I highly doubt I'm going to go back and edit this one again, but I will have my original and I will have my TIFF preserved in the file system if I ever want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as a display copy. And what it's doing here is it's appending _display to the end of the file name, and it's saving it as a TIFF. And just go ahead and hit save. And what that's going to do here, when we go back in here into Mylio, we're going to give it a moment here to redraw. And shortly here, maybe if we look at something else and we go back, sometimes when you're stacking them like this, it takes a moment. There it goes. So you can see it's got the DNG, my original DNG. There's the TIFF file, and there's the XMP. So now there we go. There's my edited version that's showing stacked. If I go into my file system, my DNG is still there, but what we're seeing here in Mylio is the TIFF. So it's stacked them together, which is another way you can work. It's completely up to you whether you want them stacked or you want to have them side by side. For me, it really depends on what I want to do with it. Sometimes I stack them, sometimes I have them side by side. It's kind of haphazard in my workflow, but you have to pick what works best for you. Now, as far as doing some batch editing, that is a great question. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to grab this range of cloud photos that I captured from the plane. And you can batch edit in a variety of different applications. If you want to just do batch editing in Adobe Camera Raw, you can do that. Let's go ahead and just open those with Photoshop. Tell it to pull the raw. And I'm going to go ahead and close that one out. It should go. There we go. And it went ahead and opened up all of those images. From here, what I can do is edit one of them, and I can sync those changes across to all of them, and then save them all back to Lightroom or to Mylio at once. I could also open up this range of images in something like Radiant Photo or Luminar Neo or some other application that you want to use. It's not just Photoshop, but the workflow is very, very flexible.
Yeah, and if what you're doing are very basic edits, like just bringing up the shadows or correcting the color slightly, you can do that right in Mylio.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and just do a quick edit on some of these, and then we can sync those changes. So just for the sake of being fast, I'm going to go ahead and do an auto, and let's do an auto white balance. I don't like that so much. We're going to go ahead and keep the original. And let's straighten out the horizon because apparently I can't take a straight picture to save my life. So that looks much better. And we can go ahead and select that first one, select that last one, click on the first one, right click, sync settings, and then choose what you want to sync. In this case, I'm going to choose not to sync the crop because they're all a little bit different as far as how they're rotated. But I can go ahead and say OK. And you'll see all of those changes just synced across. With those all still selected, I can go up here to my export and I can save them back as TIFFs. These aren't really things that I'm worried about being archival. So I can, in this case, I'm going to just save them as the display copy JPEG. So it's a JPEG file, again, with that _display, and hit save. It's going to save them all right now and put those back into my Mylio. So once it has a chance to redraw, let's go ahead and open something else up and come back. Come on. Sometimes it takes a moment, especially when we just sent a bunch of images back. But it'll do exactly like it did with this one, where it's going to stack. It's instead of having it be the DNG and TIFF, it's going to be a DNG and a JPEG.
It just did.
There it is. So this one, you can see here's the DNG and the JPEG.
And Angela, what's interesting, and some people might not realize, because Mylio is so unique with this distributed notion of all your applications, is that those images that you just edited, when they came back into Malio on your computer, Malio generated new optimized versions of those images, and those are going to be synchronized to all your other devices. So when you open any one of those images on your phone or on your tablet or on another computer, or a collaborator opens that image across the country, those changes are going to show up.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Let's see. One other thing I wanted to show you here. Let me go ahead and go back up here to the top. And you'll see just since I started, if you remember, the first things that we had in here were these news magazine clippings. And now there's a couple of new images. And that's because all I had to do was open up my Leo Photos on my iPhone when I was showing you other things. It immediately pulled in new pictures from my camera roll, and they're already here in my Leo Photos library. And just so you have an idea of how things are working, all the different devices that I have synchronizing here. This is the Mac that I'm on right now. I have several external hard drives. And then down here at the bottom, my iPad and my iPhone are showing offline. All I need to do is take my iPhone here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on, launch Mylio, and you'll see here in just a moment, it just jumped on, and now it's syncing. All I had to do was open the app on my iPhone, and now all of those changes, all of those edits we just made are now synchronizing, as JC said, to my iPhone. All I have to do is turn on Mylio Photos on my iPad, and it'll do the same thing. And it's the fastest when it's over your home network. But this works when you're sitting across town at the coffee house. If you have an internet connection, let's say you take your iPad, you leave your computer on at home with Mylio Photos running, you can get to all of that media that's on your computer at home over the internet. And that's a direct peer-to-peer connection between your devices. It doesn't have to use the cloud. If you don't want to leave a computer on at home, the cloud can be really helpful for that. But again, I would use that 3-2-1 backup scenario. Don't put everything in the cloud and have that be your only place. The cloud is awesome as one of those places. And another thing I want to mention is when you're using a cloud service with Mylio Photos, because we are so privacy minded, we offer you the option to encrypt it. So everything that I have uploading right now to Backblaze B2, that can only be read by the Mylio Photos application. That's completely encrypted. Backblaze cannot see or interpret any of that data. It's just using it there to store, and only Mylio Photos can read it. So it keeps my stuff safe. With all of the AI that's available, all of the object recognition, the optical character recognition, the things that can be read out of pictures, it can be very disconcerting when you think about all of the things that can be found in your library, especially if you're using unencrypted cloud service. So depending on what the terms and conditions are with that particular cloud, they might be scraping that to sell you things. They might be scraping that to use and generate other AI images. There's all sorts of stuff that could be happening with your images. This allows you to keep things more private and under your control, which I love. All right. So I think we're getting to that last bit of time here with for Q&A. Are there any questions?
All right, I'm going to put our headshots up so everybody can see us.
Perfect.
Okay, so Q&A. Now, we already answered the question of batch processing. So anybody out there who has questions, this is your time.
What about you, Stephen? Now that you've seen a little bit more about how it works?
Well, I'm going to wait because you and I are getting together privately. So I'll hold my questions.
Well, you never know. Some of the questions you have might be questions that other people have too. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And I mean, just to show you, I didn't go much into the AI and the search and stuff that we have, but if you go into our quick filters here, we have object recognition. So I think over 1,000 different objects that we recognize, visual properties. If you're trying to put together a gallery show or curate things for a book or a layout, this is a great way to find specific images. So I can go up here and I can say, I only want to see my 4- and 5-star images. And I want to see everything that has an overriding blue color to it.
Okay, we got 2 questions.
Go ahead.
Got 2 questions. Okay, one is, are there any future features for Mylio that you can tell us about?
Well, so I mentioned if you use Frame.io, 2 features there that we have coming. So right now you can import from Frame.io. We will also have the ability to have an uploader, so you can upload your projects, and we you're gonna have a project watcher. So if there's changes to a project that you're working on, those can stay in sync. So that's coming I would say within the next 6 months.
Okay.
We are going to be doing an overhaul of our keyword system. We've got, God, there's so many things we're working on that are just
There's a lot more
amazing.
sharing functionality that's coming.
Okay.
So a lot of the features that we've introduced over the past year are iterations to future features. So for example, we added the ability to have a machine learning engine. That's what allows the smart text that Angela was talking about. We're going to use that same engine to enhance the ability to add information to photos. So for example, if a photo has recognizable vehicles from a certain era, Malia is going to be able to suggest a date range for when that photo possibly was taken. We're going to be enhancing our face recognition with this additional technology as well. Kind of our version 2.0 of face recognition is what's coming. And one other feature that we intend to have, and it's really exciting, is account-to-account sharing. So right now, to collaborate, you have to have users on the same account and you designate spaces per device. But in the future, you're going to be able to have 2 separate Malia accounts or 7 different Malia accounts. And you can say, okay, Steven's account can see this album. So anything I add to that album just shows up in his account. So that's another exciting feature that's coming up.
All right. And then Selvan asked the cost of Plus.
Great question. So the regular price is $99 a year or $9.99 a month. And that link that I was trying to show you, let me see if I can get back to that here real quick and jump over here to just go down to the end here. There were a lot of slides in this presentation that were, you guys just wanted to see the fun stuff. So if you go to mylio.com/Andrew, you're going to get a 25% discount on your first year. So go ahead and grab that screen really quick.
And then, you can try Malio Photos Plus for 30 days for free. You just click
absolutely
on a 30-day trial and you get the exact same functionality as if you were a subscribed member.
Yeah, and if you want to see a little bit about what the difference is here, you go ahead and just close up that little sidebar so you can see it better. So as far as just basic functionality, you get the ability to protect. So one of the things of being able to get to your stuff on all of your devices is the ability to have what we call a vault. And a vault is a device that you designate to hold everything. And that can be a big hard drive. That can be a computer with a ton of storage space. That can be a NAS. So you can have multiple vaults to automatically back up your entire library. So I've got several vaults in my system. And if one of those vaults dies, I know I have my library protected on another device and I can just keep on carry on with all of my work, without blinking. If my computer goes down, I take one of those vaults, I plug it into a new computer, my library is there, I'm good to go. So that's one of the features here of this Protect. So $9.99 a month or $99 a year. And then you have that discount that I showed you, and I'll show you one more time. This is a little bit more breakdown of specific features. A lot of what we talked about for the AI powered tools, the metadata, collecting things in from different locations, a lot of that can be done on our free service, our free application. So lots of great stuff there. And like JC said, you can try it free for 30 days. And if you decide to buy, you still have another 30 days money back guarantee. So we want you to be successful. We want you to love the software. We want you to get a lot out of it. And we also acknowledge it's not for everybody. So if it's not a good fit, that's totally okay. We don't own your stuff. You retain full control of all of your media. So that gives hopefully a lot of peace of mind.
So Ace Hoffman made the comment that this has been a really great presentation. It looks like a great product as well.
Awesome.
Dave 3D Guys says, very cool stuff, guys. So I agree. This is different. This is very, very different. I'm looking forward to getting involved. So don't worry, we'll be talking, Angela.
I'm sure we will. Sure we will.
So any last minute questions? Anything you want to add, Angela and JC?
Well, let me go ahead and pop this up here for the last thing. And if anybody wants me to go back to that slide with the URL for the discount, let me know. But I have 2 more questions that I'd love to hear from you about. And this basically just says, do you like the presentation? Do you want to know more? things like that. So if you have the time, please go ahead and grab that screenshot, take the two question little survey, and we'd love to hear from you. But I'm open to any other questions you guys have about MyLeo Photos, MyLeo Photos Plus. I'm glad to hear that you guys enjoyed the presentation. It's been fun to share it with you. I particularly love sharing this with other people who are into Photoshop and things like that, because the image editing, the creative image editing is really where I get excited. It's much more sexy and entertaining than, metadata.
All right, this is great. Angela, Heidi, JC, you are awesome. Thank you for being here. This is great. All right. Okay. Well, and to all those who attend, thank you for supporting us. Thank you, Dave 3D Guy, for being a supporter. Ace Hoffman as well for being a sponsor supporter for the Photoshop group. This is great. So more is coming. We have one more. We have one left. We have November. November? What's it? This is
November.
It's November. We've got December. We got December. Time's flying. It's really flying.
You're gonna blink and it's Christmas.
I know. Our last meeting will be in December. So more details to come on that. And but thank you all for being here. This has been a lot of fun. And we'll go ahead and end the stream. So we'll say bye to all of our guests out there. And when I